you go. We're live? All right, thank you very much. Welcome members of council and members of the staff, members of the public to our council meeting here on Monday, July 11, 2022. Council has met at 5 o'clock in an a virtual meeting, and an in-person virtual meeting in regards to an in-camera item. And we met at 5 o'clock. It's now 5:30. So we're now moving into our agenda, our regular open session agenda. However, at this time, as this is the first meeting of July, I would like to read the land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards and caretakers of the land. We acknowledge that Clearview Township is located within the boundaries of Treaty 18, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Tianatari, the Wendat, and is home of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples as part of an intricate nationhood that reaches across Turtle Island. At this time of truth and reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity to work together towards new understandings and new relationships and ask for guidance in all that we do. As always, I'm say this voluntarily, and I'm proud to do so as the mayor of this municipality. So council, we're going to move on to our agenda. We've got everyone here. We're online, and I'm going to move to item number 2, which is our approval of the agenda. So recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda dated July 11, 2022 as presented. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Broderick, Deputy Mayor Burton. Any questions from members? Seeing none, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you. Item 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Does any member have any disclosures for this meeting? If anything comes up, please bring it forward. We'll deal with it right away. Thank you. And at this time, we go to public participation period. Please be advised that comments and views expressed under public participation period are not the views of the Township of Clearview, Council, or the administration. Public participation is limited to 5 minutes. Each person is limited to 15 minutes. Each person is limited to 5 minutes. Questions or comments should be directed to the mayor. Questions shall not be or refer to personnel matters, litigation, or potential litigation, or planning matters that have already had a public meeting or any item considered confidential. Further, I'd ask members of the public to make sure that they share their time with their fellow citizens. I see we do have some people in the gallery. Is there any questions from the public today? Yes, David? If you'd like to stand up, you could perhaps Sarah could assist with the microphone that we've prepared for our delegation. There we go. Welcome, Dave.
Go ahead.
Please do.
I came across an interesting letter in the Creamer Echo this last Friday. I just wanted to read it verbatim and await your response at the end, if that's okay.
Please go right ahead.
Dear editor, at the end of June, Clearview Township announced that they were thrilled to welcome the public back into council chambers for public participation once again. Wonderful news. What they have chosen to do is eliminate access for the public to submit written comments via their website. Why? With the online portal, which is just a fillable form created as a result of the pandemic, Clearview had the highest level of public engagement to date, as stated by measures and councillors at numerous council meetings, all available for viewing on their website. Voters and residents could share their opinions, even if they had mobility issues, limited or no access to transportation, to childcare, or were unable to take off time from work and other obligations. If you can go online or know someone who can do it for you, your voice can be heard. It is not okay that Clearview Township has made the deliberate choice to go backwards. They are refusing to keep this positive change that COVID demanded and are insisting that we must now show up in person in Stayner at 5:30 on a Monday. Clearview is actively raising barriers to participation and is sending a very clear message that they don't want to hear from us. Whether this is the CAO's directive or coming from someone somewhere else, this is not okay. This is unnecessary. This needs to be corrected right now. I urge everyone in Clearview to reach out to mayor measures and councillors by phone and or by emailing council@clearview.ca to the CAO and clerk to insist that the online public participation form be immediately reinstated. It is not a difficult undertaking to maintain the online form. It is, however, a very big deal to have the online form taken away, even though it has been done with a gleeful announcement about eased restrictions. Have your voice heard. Now and going forward, let's participate in the work that will impact every single one of us for years to come. Signed, Samantha Margis, Creemore. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Do you have anything further you want to add, or?
No, that's it.
Okay, well, thank you. For your information, Ms. Margis, I believe her name is, she contacted us just at about 4:30 today, and I responded to her and acknowledged that that her communication with members of council was successful in the fact that she used the email address council@clearview.ca to communicate to all members of council. All members of council did receive it, and all members of council have it on their emails as we speak. Whether they've read it or not is up to the individual members of council. But the communications to members of council by written form is easily obtainable through the use of email, council@clearview.ca. The use of public participation was welcome back to this chamber, as we want to welcome back everyone back into our chambers tonight and all council meetings. So I would suggest to you and to members of the public that we are welcome to hear from public input, particularly in the in-person form. That's why we're here, and we're here to help. And that's what we're doing here tonight. So I'm looking forward to more opportunities to meet with the public and work with the public and hear what they have to say. The best way they can reach out to us in a written form is to use the email address, as already outlined in her letter to the editor, as well as proven today when she sent that email. So I think it's important to note that if you're looking to get information in a format where you're participating in a council meeting, you would want to contact the clerk's office, as our delegation has tonight, and made arrangements to be a delegation here at the council meeting. That's the correct procedure if you wish to make something on the agenda to join council members. So I think we're actually moving in the right direction to get people back to normal. And I think that this is a good thing. So thank you very much for coming in tonight, Dave. And it's nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the public? All right, given an opportunity for other members, thank you. I'll acknowledge Councillor McKechnie. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the clerk. I think this needs further discussion this evening, and I appreciate the mayor's comments. I was wondering about bringing it up during my ward report, just for a discussion from all of council. And so I'm just wondering if that is appropriate, or whether we should, because it's been put on the table now, and I see that Mr. Witzke has left, but whether we should discuss it now or wait till my ward report. I understand I'm okay to bring it up during the ward report from my perspective. So is that appropriate? That's the question. I have for the clerk.
Councillor McKechnie, you can bring it up in ward report if you want to have a discussion again. I think I outlined pretty clearly that we're following the procedural bylaw that is set out by the municipality, that we're following best practices. We're providing an opportunity for the public to have a safe environment to meet here at the council chamber. And we are respecting the fact that if people wish to make a delegation, that they contact the clerk's department to make a delegation, such as our guest that's joining us here in chambers tonight. Okay. So I don't think it's any different. If you want to bring it up, we can bring it up. We can have a debate at that time. But I mean, you'll have to demonstrate to me why we're doing it wrong.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, I think that we need to have a discussion from all of council, and I just wanted to know if the ward report was the appropriate time. And I agree, and thank you for your comments. I will have different comments. So
thank you.
Anyway, so we'll discuss it during ward report, and we'll see where it goes.
All right, thank you. We'll look forward to that at that time. All right, so that concludes public participation period, item number 4. And as Councillor McKechnie did note, David was here and he has since now left. So onward and upward. Deputations and presentations. We'd like to welcome to our chambers, Rosalind Morrison. Rosalind is the chair of the board of directors of the Institute of Southern Georgian Bay. Somebody's microphone is feeding back. Is that your camera on your phone? I see. There we go. You got that turned off? Okay. She's nodding her head. Yes, thank you. All right. Roz, nice to see you in person. I've joined you in a couple of meetings in the past, so it's great to see you in person.
Thank you, Doug. It's really nice to be here and to see all of you. And thank you for my 5 minutes. As Doug mentioned, we are a volunteer-driven organization, which is relatively young. Many of you have participated in some of our events. I have a slide deck here. In 2020, we were very grateful that you were partners with us on our Mapping Our Road to Recovery report. We're back again this year, 2 years later, to ask you if you would become a program partner once again. Sarah, may I have the slide deck, please? Next slide. There we go. So this is an opportunity for us to do things differently and take what we've learned through the pandemic and see what we can do to increase the positive moves that we make in trying to deal in the 21st century with the challenges and opportunities that we see in front of us. The vision of the Institute was really around the idea of there being 100,000 people within the geographic footprint, including 6 municipalities: Meaford, Town of the Blue Mountains, Grey Highlands, Collingwood, Wasaga Beach, and Clearview. And so this number of people provide an enormous pool of talent and an enormous pool of knowledge and resources. So the idea would be, how do we come together and weave together the opportunity for people to discuss issues and opportunities and do so with new knowledge and new resources? Next slide, please. So the vision really is to harness the power of people and this beautiful place that we call Southern Georgian Bay to grow social, environmental, and economic prosperity. I think we're learning as we move through the 21st century that these three pieces are intertwined. We learned that business isn't healthy if our nonprofit healthcare professionals aren't healthy through the pandemic, certainly. So these kinds of observations have given us a slightly different take on how we might move forward. We want to be, through sharing knowledge, the smartest, greenest, healthiest, and most caring region in Ontario. Next slide. So what we've noticed as well is that the need for developing more social capital, bringing people together like today, getting to know each other, build relationships and trust will enable us to actually do things we mightn't have done before. And so we see the Institute as this connector, as this knowledge share, which is providing now through COVID, and we'll continue this into the future, an online platform for discussion and then fostering collaborative initiatives. Next slide. So our purpose is to really begin a discussion around how our sectors and issue areas are interconnected. We want to bring the 4 major sectors together in ways that haven't been done before: the business sector, government sector, nonprofit sector, and philanthropic sector, to see how we can work with each other and do things in a way that is perhaps more efficient, perhaps more innovative, and certainly would have more resources. There are 5 particular priority areas for us: arts and culture, social justice, the environment, business and social innovation, and health and well-being. So really what we do are 3 things. We connect people, we share knowledge through reports and research, not only our own, but from many other organizations, government jurisdictions, and innovators from across the country, and we foster collaborative ideas. So we have learned through our work that we need to get to know each other because we have to know what each other's objectives are. What is the strategic plan for Clearview? What is the community looking for? And how does that relate to the other municipalities across the region that we described? So how do we actually align our objectives to get better impact? And how do we create new multi-sector partnerships? So the 2022 work plan, and hopefully you will consider becoming a program partner in it, is based on our experience. So as I mentioned earlier, in 2020, we did go online with 4 very important events. We produced a final report called Mapping Our Road to Recovery, and we thank you for your partnership on that. In 2020, also something very unusual happened. Collingwood put their hand up to become a model community for Sustainable Development Goal 11. And that is all about creating and maintaining sustainable cities and communities. And so when we participated in the First World Summit that Collingwood hosted, International Summit, we found 3 resolution items from that summit to be very important for our region. The first was affordable housing. The second was dealing with environmental challenges. And the third was connecting innovative towns and innovation districts. We, in 2019, brought one of the leaders in social innovation to our region, and we've learned a lot about it since. And it can certainly help solve some of our issues. And also out of the 2020 summit, there were 38 resolution items. Number 38 was all about 10 pilot projects that could be regional and most certainly collaborative. Last year, we developed an online multi-sector discussion series called Our Sustainable Future. And we actually unpacked the Sustainable Development Goal 11 milestones, which are all about the things that we are talking about: affordable housing, environmental challenges, integrated planning, protecting our natural and cultural heritage. So the things that are most important to our residents and our communities. In 2021 and 2022, we created a whole learning group, because there's a lot to learn in terms of moving through this century, called Social Finance Learning Group. And social finance is a relatively new set of tools and practices. Think community bonds or community land trusts or community loan funds that can help accelerate progress. So this group learned a lot. It learned about how many municipalities across the country are now doing social procurement with their large budgets. So there's a lot of good stuff that we unpacked. And then last year, towards the end, we decided we need to focus on knowing what the tools are for social finance that we can put into affordable housing so that there is more access to capital. And this year, we're participating and presenting in a national housing lab that's being hosted by Social Innovation Canada and Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. So 2022 programming, and this is what we're talking about in terms of your participation. Our new collaborative online discussion series this year is based on local sustainable economies. Our economy was impacted dramatically through COVID. And so what did we learn from that? And what do we want to be learning now? And piloting projects to actually create really strong local sustainable economies. So we launched that series in June with 2 events. The first one was bringing the regional CAOs together to talk about, well, what are the key building blocks for sustainable communities? And John very kindly participated with his colleagues, and we got a great turnout, lots of community discussion. The second one was on affordable housing, presenting 2 local reports for the first time that had local data. Connie, you were involved in those in one of those reports, and the amount of community engagement and determination of these task force is really immense and admirable. We want to map out social enterprises. Social enterprise is a new kind of business that has a double or triple bottom line, not just profit, but it has social indicators or environmental indicators that these businesses adhere to and want to achieve. We want to conduct a feasibility study for a green economy hub. These are hubs that work with business across the country to lower carbon footprint. We want to partner on the expansion of the Carbon Footprint Challenge, which has started in Collingwood, and we want to see it right across the region, because it's probably important for us to know at least what our current carbon footprint challenge is with each of us in residences and each of our businesses. We want to support a regional forum for artists and arts organizations. It's never been done before. We published a regional art strategy last year. We attracted a $10,000 donation from a philanthropist, and a new organization has been created called the SGB, South Georgian Bay Arts Network. And that network is the one that will be hosting this forum. I mentioned how we're participating in the National Housing Lab. And we want to be able to, through our work with the National Housing Lab, showcase municipal levers, many of which you already might have heard about, and social finance levers and tools that can help. We want to partner on the pilot projects, and we hope that as many councillors and business people from the 6 municipalities are involved in the next UN Habitat in Town Collingwood World Summit happening October 31st and November 1st. And most importantly, perhaps, how do we measure our success? We want to be able to bring community together and choose the community indicators that we all want to see action on. Next slide, please. Sustainable Development Goals. Canada and 192 other UN nations signed on to these in 2015, and there are milestones, and the deadline is 2030. So they are all interconnected. You can see there 11 sustainable cities and communities is what we're focusing in on. Next slide, please. Request for partnership support. It really is to become a partner with us in developing where we're going with this programming and with the next few years in terms of potential pilot projects. How can we all work together? We're requesting $5,000 in partnership support in order to maintain free public access and community engagement development for our public programming. We think that the benefits that all residents will have will be an increased level of community engagement, free access to this very unique regional online discussion platform, knowledge sharing of best practices from other jurisdictions, sharing resources on collaborative projects for greater impact, and accelerating progress on our collective issues. Thank you very much for your consideration of this request, and I hope that we can work together on a better future for all together.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Rosalind. It was a good review to see this sort of all in one place. Having attended a couple of your seminars in the past, I kind of got an understanding of what the goals and objectives of the group are. So this was good to see. So I thank you very much for coming and making that presentation. Members of council, do you have any questions to Rosalind at this time, since she's here with us in the room? Yes, Tom, and then, oh, sorry, I was looking this way for, you guys got to share, okay? I'm going to go to Doug McKechnie next.
All right, thank you very much, Your Worship. So Rosalind, good meeting you. One small criticism, and I hope you take this in the spirit that it's intended. I've seen some of your presentations before and this presentation today, and I find them a little bit abstract. You know, you've got all the buzzwords and such. And so I think what you're doing is a good thing, but I just find that sometimes I get lost in your presentations. So when you answer this question, I need you to dumb it down for me. As my wife says, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So anyway, my question to you is, this council just recently directed staff to initiate a climate action committee. It's part of our climate action crisis or climate crisis declaration. So we don't have a climate action committee yet, but there are, I guess the other municipalities have climate action committees or people in charge of climate crisis in their municipality. So how do you see bringing the various climate action committees together in the municipalities, and so how will they be brought together so that we can learn what other people are doing, what other communities are doing, and how will you measure the progress that those climate action committees make? So those are
Can I
my,
interrupt?
my two questions.
Can I interrupt first? Can you just clarify, is it an objective of the Institute to amalgamate or bring all of these committees together, of these climate crisis committees? Is that an objective?
If they want us to, we would work towards that. This is really all about us working together. So
Sure.
that is not a specific goal yet. The first step, I think, is working with the climate action teams to see if we can bring the regional idea to the carbon footprint challenge. It's a test to see what is the interest level for people to work together. What I've learned is that many of them haven't yet met each other. And so we do need to bring them together in some way. So I'm working with Catherine Daw, one of the leaders for the climate action team in Collingwood, to do just that. She is working to see which municipalities would like that carbon footprint challenge to be in their municipality, and would they have a host of residents working on that. And so that's the first step. But we might find ourselves next year having discussions with all of the groups together. And so they hopefully will be involved in our feasibility study to create a green economy hub here. It'd be a natural step in terms of helping to achieve progress on climate action. So that's the kind of process we move with people. We try to present opportunities, and then we're right there. If people really want to do it, we'll work as hard as we can to make it happen.
Okay, thank you. And so then you mentioned the Green Economy Hub.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expand on that?
Mm-hmm. These are organizations that work with businesses to, first of all, measure their carbon footprint, their carbon outputs, and then to develop programs within the businesses to lower that. And what other green economy hubs across the country are finding is that businesses are signing up. Why? Well, it's saving them money in many cases, to do this process. And at the same time, it's helping to achieve the milestones that Canada has signed on to, and that so many of our residents are hoping we make real progress on quickly.
Okay,
All right.
I think that's it for now.
Are you comfortable? Sorry to interrupt you there, Councillor
No.
McKechnie, but I just want to clarify that was,
Yep.
it wasn't in there as a goal to bring the groups together as to one. And that's, your question was leading that way. And I was like, I don't think that's their objective.
Yeah.
It is a process that we have that sometimes we get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thank you. My concern was that once again, going back to the the presentation and such, and it's a little bit abstract for me. And I like to see, a path going from point A to point B. And, I just don't know exactly what you can do for our climate action committee, so that was the reason why I asked the question. I thought that you could arrange, meetings between all the climate action committees and such, and chair those meetings or facilitate those meetings. But you're saying that you're not at that level yet.
I would say we're not there yet. However, I could definitely see that happening if people want it.
Okay, thank you.
Reasonable. Thank you. Councillor Patterson, you're up next. Do you have a few questions?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I did participate in your first session as well, so I have a general idea. And there were many subjects of interest that we are either quite aware of in working maybe on the first or second generation of, in terms of the social fabric. The issue we have with this very specific request like this, the money is not, it's not huge as a contribution to what looks like a worthwhile effort to be done by somebody. But I would need to have more of an embedded view. Somebody that represents Clearview, that sits in your group and brings a perspective like John presented. I would go to him, for example, and say, well, what do you think? Is there something, because you're getting your arms around a lot of subjects that we've all become more aware that we're not doing as much as we could and we should. So, COVID for sure was a learning experience. And I, for one, and I think others feel the same way, hope we don't have to desperately cling to some of the lessons we've learned, that we learn from them and continue them. So there's a motivation and an urgency, I think, in this to do something. But I would have to be able to decide whether or not it's work that we should do in collaboration with partners, or it's work that maybe is better done in a group that is wider than our municipal responsibility by definition or by effectiveness. So I guess I would see council and staff discussing this and deciding how do we determine whether or not we want to be involved in this. That to me is more important than should we do some of this stuff. I think it's easier to say, yes, we should do it. Who does it? So I appreciate you bringing it forward again. Keep us aware of this. But I do think the next time we meet, maybe we should have a township perspective of the worth in being your partner.
That would certainly fulfill the multi-sector partnership idea.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Councillor Patterson. I'm going to acknowledge the Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Leishman and then Councillor Denis. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So thank you for your presentation. Interesting concept. So I see you've outlined two-part question. So I've seen you've outlined the 6 communities that you're coming to for asking for donations. Have you contacted the counties as well for donations to your program?
Not yet, but it's a natural next step.
Okay, so I'm looking at 6 communities. It's $5,000 each. That's $30,000. I specifically like to know what the money's going towards.
Well, we are a group of volunteers who are feeling rather toasty around the edges after putting in about 50 hours a week of volunteer time for 3 years. But what we do with our money, with a lot of intention, is to put it back into the local economies. So we would be hiring people to work on the website. We would be hiring people to write our reports. We would be hiring people to do things that are better done by people who know what they're doing, like social media. And we always hire local people. So whatever contributions we all make, whether it's from the municipal governments or philanthropically or wherever we're finding our money, it's going right back into the local economy so that we walk the walk.
All right, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Good answer. Councillor Leishman is next, then Denis. Hello,
Thank
Connie.
you. Hi, Rosalind. How are you doing?
Very well.
It's nice to see you. I've been watching Rosalind for a while now because I do go to these sessions. I have to say that I feel the way Councillor McKechnie did about the road to recovery, but I'm not sure that there was much more you could have done on those series. But the one that I did really enjoy was the UN Habitat in Towns. I learned an awful lot. I learned that there's houses that can be built in a week. They can be adapted to our climate. It's pretty incredible what they're doing around the world. And I think we should actually open our eyes and ears to that. So I'm sorry I'm on my outgoing, but I'm pretty sure we can carry on if we contribute to this, and I'd like to see some councillor pick up the ball and run with it, because I've learned a lot, and I would like other people to get involved in and share it as well. And I really think it might help our Economic Development Committee a lot too, to have insight into the other areas in the whole region of what they're doing. So I would support this. I probably wouldn't have before, when I did, because I was a little disappointed in it, but I understood why. And now I would, because I am getting quite a bit out of it. So thank you. And I would encourage any councillor to join these sessions.
Yep, for sure.
Anyway, thank you.
I believe the invites have been sent out to all members of council, so I'm pretty sure everyone has received that. So anyway, keep up the good work. Councillor Denis is next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Connie and I sat on the Affordable Attainable Housing Committee with others for over a year. And Connie has already put forward something to work on another initiative through the township, which hasn't been implemented yet. I feel this is a little bit premature for us. And sorry, but I feel that that amount of money is a little ambitious. That's just in that there are other considerations out there that we could be dealing with. And I really appreciate your presentation. And the UN Habitat in Towns, that was a Collingwood project, was that not? That was initiated by the town of Collingwood, yes. So yeah, I just feel it's a little bit premature to be going in at that amount at this time until we've done a little bit more work on our own initiative.
All right, thank you very much. Any other members of council? Back to Mr. McKechnie. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it's been good listening to everybody's comments here. So going back to my earlier comment, Rosalind, about how I felt that, your presentations were a little bit abstract for me and, not to the point and such. And you have an ask of $5,000 and there's six communities. And so that totals $30,000. And to the deputy mayor's comment, he was wondering where that money went. I've seen that you have put a lot of work into what you've been doing. And I'm not sure how many committee members you have, but $30,000 is not a whole lot of money. So I would like to put a motion on the floor that we contribute the $5,000 to the South Georgian Bay. What's your
Institute of Southern Georgian Bay?
The Institute of South Georgian Bay, because I think it's important that you keep going. I think that you need to keep going. I think you're just starting, and I think that we have to support that. So I would like to put the motion on the floor that we support the South Institute of South Georgian Bay to the tune of $5,000. And anyway, we'll see where it goes.
Okay, thank you very much for putting the motion on the floor. A little premature, because I would have said, is there anything further? But I wanted to have a couple comments too.
Okay.
But nevertheless, I appreciate that. So I will ask for council to hold on that for a moment as I give a quick comment to Roz and a question. I know that the participation in this, in your organization has been very voluntary, and congratulations on their volunteer effort and work. Very big goals to try to bring these municipalities together. If I must comment, my experience so far as been a member of council and now the mayor, I've tried very hard to work closely with our neighboring municipalities on a lot of issues. Most recently on physician recruitment, that was a real challenge to try to get to that one. The councils of the 6 communities did not agree unanimously on a financial contribution towards a physician recruitment committee, something that genuinely impacts people today, the lack of physicians in our community. So asking for this kind of money and having hopes that all the neighboring municipalities will continue to support the efforts of this institute as a volunteer organization outside of a municipal structure, I'm impressed that you're getting the uptake that you are. I find it interesting that a municipally driven motion to support physician recruitment did not get that kind of support. So it's interesting to me that an issue like physician recruitment on a regional basis, which is a borderless issue. Each of us have doctors in all of our neighboring municipalities. My doctor is in Collingwood. Fair enough. That an issue like that didn't get the uptake. So while I'm very supportive of the ideals of what you're presenting, I'm unsure as to how we would be able to contribute, given that we're a smaller partner and given that our goals and objectives may not necessarily align with our neighbors when it comes to, as you pointed out, the green economy. This is an agricultural community. We're just getting started with our climate crisis committee. That is something that's going to be talked about. Our strategic plan currently has to be reviewed and should and will, I predict, looking at our members will include climate crisis in it. It doesn't today. So it's awkward for us to, support something without having it in the actual document. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to talk to our staff and see through staff as well as through our Economic Development Committee, whether this is something that we can explore a little further down the road. And so it would be my hope that this council will look for that information from our staff and from our EDC committee to support a motion like Councillor McKechnie's put forward just now. So that's my comment, Roz. I have enjoyed the content, as Councillor Leishman said, learned a lot, which we have. There's some very interesting commentary and some excellent experts that you've had on your sessions, and I've enjoyed every one of them. So knowledge is important. So being responsible municipal governments with how we spend tax dollars is actually really important too. So that's a little difference that we need to make sure that we pay attention to that. I don't know if you have anything you want to add. Other than that, I'm going to go to the council. Roz?
Yeah, just a few things, and I'll only take a minute or so. And that is, thanks for listening, because a lot of this stuff is new to me. So we're learning, and we're learning as fast as we can. The learning curve for this century is actually straight up. That can be a great, and it can also be extremely frustrating. So I hear you. The second thing is that the Local Sustainable Economies series is just going to get more and more interesting. In September, we're going to be looking at new directions for business and really unpacking the double and triple bottom line businesses that are already in our region, and looking at that and seeing how can that actually contribute to climate change action. Or the job is to bring it all together. And so I know that risk is something that we'll all have to have a little bit more appetite for, because we don't know exactly how best to move forward when we haven't built these relationships before. But to Connie's point, we put together a local slate of speakers for the Collingwood World Summits so that our local voices were there at an international summit and could be heard, and that we had a lot of people listening and learning in real time. So I understand your concerns and all the things that you're balancing, and I hope that you know where to find me if you have further questions. I'm very happy to answer anything more. And if there are people who are responsible for your economic development that I'm not currently reaching out to, we'd love to have them on the design team for this fall, looking at new directions for business. What is the role of the arts in local sustainable economies? How do we look at multi-sector partnerships and philanthropy? And where do we go with the green economy? So that's it's not easy.
Right. Well, just one last thing is you've come to the right community if you want to talk about arts. We have artists in our community that are genuinely making a living and contributing to the economy of this region because they are full-time artists. Mm-hmm. And it's a wonderful thing to be celebrated in our community for sure. And I'm talking about all the arts, whether they're performance arts, whether they're visual arts, sculptors. We have a great number of citizens who are active in that sector of the economy. And so it's a big part of our community for sure. So Thank you for acknowledging that. Yes. Thank you, Roz, for being here.
Very welcome.
All right, don't go away because I'm going to go to Councillor McKechnie. Councillor McKechnie, you've got a motion on the floor. I know you've already read it out. I'll just ask if there's a seconder to support it. Councillor Leishman, I saw your card earlier, so I stayed looking this direction rather than looking this direction. So there you go. Members of council, do you have any discussion on the motion on the floor? Councillor Patterson.
I would make a suggestion, not to derail your suggestion, but to keep it moving and along the lines of what I heard in this discussion, is that I'd like to get a clear view perspective on how we would fit this in, because we do have some work that we have to do, and it would greatly expand, for example, our strategic plan discussion. So rather than vote on it tonight, would you take as a friendly amendment, or I will move as an amendment, that we direct staff, and we have some knowledge already from the head of staff, to come back and answer some of the questions that were maybe causing us to not make an immediate commitment, or making a commitment without having all the facts. So I would say, if you're open for a friendly amendment, that we direct staff to do what you ask.
Friendly amendment accepted.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think what Tom is suggesting is reasonable because we don't, there is some concern, I think, amongst the councillors. And I think that it would be good to have a report back from staff on this, and then we could vote on it maybe properly then. Yeah, sure. I'm okay with that.
If I can just refer to the CAO, who's also a member of our Economic Development Committee team. Mr. CAO, would this be something that we could either discuss with the EDC team, or is this something from your office that you'd be able to advise council on either an appropriate way to fund such a request or how it actually fits within the goals and objectives of Clearview?
Yeah, no, certainly. And I can reach out to Rosalind as well. And I like the aspect of the knowledge that gets increased through this because I think that's very important. A lot of times there's misinformation, and the more knowledge that's out there that, brings out the facts of certain things, I think helps. I'll talk to you about it. We're starting on a road ourselves as it relates to community economic development, surviving in a global economy and trying to make it happen locally at the same time. And so we're going to take an interesting approach with the community. And I'll be happy to share that with you. And if we feel that we can build on each other, I'd be happy to look at that.
Sounds exciting.
Okay. All right. So Mr. CAO has acknowledged what Councillor Patterson is asking through a friendly amendment to McKechnie and Leishman's request. Now, for clarity, I'll just ask the clerk if she's understood the direction that's been just transpired across this table.
Thank you, Your Worship. If there's any changes, please let me know. That staff be directed to bring forward a report back to council with regard to how the proposed programming partnership will meet the strategic plan of the municipality.
Is that a comfortable direction?
I didn't quite hear it. Can you repeat it, please?
Bring that
Sure.
microphone closer there.
I can do
Barbara,
that.
here we go.
Can you hear me now? No. That staff be directed to bring forward a report back to council with regard to how the proposed programming partnership with the Institute of Southern Georgian Bay will meet the strategic plans of the municipality.
That's fair enough. Sure. You okay, Connie?
Councillor
Yep.
Leishman, thank you. All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Nothing further from members of council? I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Appreciate that. Noted. That'll carry. And one thing we didn't do, which is usually something we always miss up on, a timeline for something like that. Mr. Ferguson, what do you think?
Gosh.
I know I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but it is a difficult one. We often ask this at our council meetings. We don't get a definitive timeline when we might expect.
We have a regular council meeting in August.
Yes.
I'll try to have it ready for August's council meeting.
All right. If not, September, because we only have one in August.
We only have one meeting in August. It just depends on how heavy it is, but I'll try to get it ready for that.
All right. Thank you, members of council. That's good. Rosalind, again, thank you for joining us here in the chambers. It's nice to see you.
Thanks very much for your time.
All right. Okay, members of council, I'd like to just defer for a moment and acknowledge Ms. Ferguson, who's in the room. I know I spoke to you earlier today on the phone. Public participation period has already come and gone. I wanted you to be aware of that. Okay. All right. Okay, no problem. I know that we spoke on the phone briefly, and I wanted to assure you that it has already happened and it's already expired. So thank you. All right, members of council. Thank you, Rosalind. We're moving on now to item 5.2. I believe Lloyd Hunt. Is Lloyd Hunt on the call? And he is going to join us he's an architect, and I understand he wants to join us in regards to the Collingwood Agricultural Society, the GNE request for a waiver for development charges. Mr. Hunt. There we are. I can see your office. Hello, Lloyd.
Yep. Hi there. And,
how are you?
I'm good. I really appreciate the Zoom method of attending council meeting. We also have with us Joanne, who is the president of the GNE. We recently have submitted a permit, building permit application, and we were made aware from the building department that we could ask for a waiver on development charges for the building that we're building for the GNE, which is a replacement of the office building as well as the food stand that is used by the GNE, and that's why I'm here council. We've also included the charity number of the GNE, the Collingwood Agricultural Society, and I think that that's the simple steps of being able to say about this. Is there any other questions that you may have for us?
I'll start off then, Lloyd. It is a simple request, and I believe council has the information in front of us as part of your commentary and in your report to council. I would like to point out, Mr. Hunt, that the ask for is approximately $5,000 worth of waiving. Council at this table can only deal with issues that are development charges that we collect. We do not represent the county of Simcoe nor the school board development charges. So it's difficult for us to receive your request when it actually exceeds the value of what this table can actually deal with. So I just want to make you aware of whatever discussion or deliberation this council would have would only be in the areas that we are actually responsible for. Mr. Hunt, you agree?
Yes, I understand that. I realize that late at night that the development charges will only apply for the township of Clearview, and that you would not be able to speak for the county or the educational charges.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Hunt is available for any questions, and I believe some staff are on board. Any members of council with any questions or comments to this? Yes, Deputy Mayor Burton.
Thank you. Hi, Lloyd. Good to see you again. Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of waiving our portion, but yes, you took the words out of my mouth, Your Worship. We're just not capable of waiving the development charges for the county, although often the county does follow suit. If we do, they typically do, but there's no guarantee they will do that. That's something you'll have to ask the county for. But considering the G&E and it is in Clearview, and it is our, the National Agricultural Fair that's, and considering we're a huge agricultural community and we've assisted other agricultural businesses with waiving development fees, I would be willing to waive our portion of the development fees, which is, I forget, I looked at the numbers, but it wasn't an extreme number.
Perhaps I could just ask for a member of our treasury or someone from building department to provide us with that number, and maybe they can email it to the clerk. So, Lloyd, do you have it?
Yeah, it's community benefit non-res is $15.78, and a rural non-resident is $2,651.04.
Just those two categories, is that correct?
The next one is Simcoe County non-residential of $2,300 and an educational development charge.
All right. Okay, thank you, Lloyd, for that information. Can I have, is there anybody else who would like to speak? Sorry, is that right, Councillor Deneen? Yellow card, green card, which one do you want to go with? Just want to get my attention.
Deputy Mayor Burton is making to waive that.
All right.
Thank you.
That's the seconder then for the motion. I see that. Is there any other questions to members of staff or members or Mr. Hunt himself, members of council? Seeing none. All right. Mr. CAO, you comfortable with that direction? I wasn't sure if you were trying to speak or not. I don't know if you have a yellow card. Do you have a card over there?
It's in my office.
Okay.
I keep forgetting to bring it. If I may, I would just say, subject to the confirmation of our treasurer, those numbers, just to make sure that they're exact. That's all based on our portion. That's all I'd recommend.
Yeah, thank you. That's where I was kind of asking for the treasury or the building department to confirm that. But tell you what we'll do is we'll leave that in the hands of the clerk's department and the treasury department to make sure it's correct. Make sense? All right, nothing further from members of council. Madam Clerk, do you have a motion for clarity?
Thank you, Your Worship. That the presentation of Lloyd Hunt be received, and further that the request by the Collingwood Agricultural Society Great Northern Exhibition for a waiver in the municipal portion of the development charges in the amount of $2,666.82, subject to the confirmation of the Township Treasurer, be approved.
All right, thank you. Moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Deneen. Any questions, members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Mr. Hunt, nice short delegation. Nice to have you join us though in the meeting.
Like to keep it simple. So thank you very much. And certainly the G&E is very much appreciative of this. And we all know how important the G&E is for the community. So thanks. And Joanne, do you want to add a comment?
Hello,
Yes.
Joanne. Go ahead,
Hi,
Joanne.
how are you? I'm good. As president of Collingwood Ag Society, I would really like to express our appreciation for the consideration of this deputation. Every little bit counts when you're a nonprofit organization. So thank you again, and hope to see you all at this year's fair.
Outstanding. Congratulations to all the work that you and the volunteers do to bring the Great Northern Exhibition to our community every year. So keep up the great work and look forward to seeing you there. And if not, we'll see you around the community anytime. All the best.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our delegations council. That finishes section 5 of our agenda at this time. So we will move on to item 6, public meetings. There is no public meeting. Item 7 is approval of the meeting minutes. So we have one council meeting minutes. Be it resolved that council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the minutes of the June 27, 2022 council meeting as presented. Moved by the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Broderick. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the minutes are approved. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes. Anybody got any business? No, seeing none. Communications from the mayor. First of all, we did have a closed session at 5 o'clock tonight, as I mentioned at the top of the meeting. There is no items for me to report at this time. Item 9.2 is the Ferreté Simcoe Pride request for proclamation for the Simcoe Pride July 25th, 27, and a flag raising. There's a report included. Item 9.3 is the Enbridge Gas notice of application to dispose of balance of certain deferral and variance accounts. And item 9.4 is a letter from the CFP Borden recognizing the township for the contribution to the 2022 Canadian Armed Forces Day and Air Show. Is there any questions on these items or anything that needs to be pulled? No, seeing none. Members of council, I will entertain the motion and to receive these communications. Be it resolved that council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive communications from the mayor for information. Can I have a mover? Mr. Broderick, I'll look this way. Mr. Walker, thank you. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. And I will schedule the flag raising date and inform members of council as to what that date will be. All right. Thank you. Item 10, county reports for information. Now, we have several items on here, and I would like to go to the deputy mayor who serves on county council with me. Barry, do you have anything you want to report on? And some of these are some pretty exciting news releases that have come forward.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I thank you, your worship, and I'm sure everybody has read them. So there has been some exciting stuff going on at county. You know, the multiple grants to support seniors programming, considering that I believe June is Seniors Month at county, and the various programs that they're offering, and so it's moving forward. The County Simcoe news release for popular secondary suites program. This is a program designed to create affordable housing within existing residential lots where you can actually build basically an access apartment so that perhaps a senior or a single person could rent that. And they do have forgivable loans. I believe it's up to $50,000 is I'd have to recheck the number, but it's a substantial number. That is a forgivable loan. If you build within 120 days, they will give you money towards the cost of building that unit and creating a home for somebody. County Simcoe Regional Airport, which is the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport, welcomes Right Air Group, which is now taken over and become part of the family at the Lake Simcoe Airport, which is exciting news for the county. And the county at our last meeting, the worship will remember that we committed additional funding to the shelter system as the motel system, temporary system that we had working to house people during COVID. That money has sort of been spent, and that came from the feds in the province. So we're committing extra funding to our shelter partners who create shelter for individuals who are homeless. So there's been some exciting stuff happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Is any members of council any questions on these items? No, I just want to add to that last item, Deputy Mayor, was the funding for the shelter system. It is interesting to note, while we are one of the smaller municipalities in the county of Simcoe as a participating partner, and because we're small and mostly an agricultural community, we do not have sort of identifiable homelessness that happens in our community. However, survey work has been proven that there are homelessness that does happen in our community. And the term couch surfing has been bandied around a little bit. It's sort of an unidentified group of individuals who actually do this, and they've been sort of accounted for in the count that we did across the entire county. And it did prove that there are significant numbers right here in our community that do fall into that category. And so I was pleased to be able to support the motion to continue the funding. Although this directly supports the City of Barrie initiative, the City of Barrie is sort of the draw, the magnet, the location of most of the homeless problems in our county. And so that's why I was very supportive of the motion when it was presented. Any questions? All right. I have a recommendation. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive the county reports for information. Could I have a mover? I'll go with the Deputy Mayor and Mr. McKechnie. Thank you. Anything further? All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, as always. Okay, we're going to go to council reports and community announcements. I'm going to go around the table. I got to remember, I've forgotten which direction I started, fellas. I mean, Mr. Walker, Mr. McKechnie, who's up first? Come on.
I think I started first last time.
Oh, Mr. Walker then.
So
okay.
Let it rip, Robert.
I'll go number one for a change.
Number one. Mr. Walker, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing really a whole lot, just thank you to the ATV Club and Councilor Roderick, to the Parks, Recreation and Culture Committee, to and their staff, to the Heritage Society for a great day on July 1st. Thank you so much to the ATV Club for taking the parade and moving with it. And it was a good parade. And to all those involved, it was a great day down in Centennial Park. Weather-wise was great, and everything else was a good afternoon. So thank you to all those involved to help celebrate Canada's July 1st. The other thing is, I'd just like to say tonight you have a youth committee report, which is on agenda. So please feel free to, hopefully you've had a good look at that and see the activities that our youth center has moved forward with. It's quite extensive and they're doing a great job. The other thing is change hats for public, free swim on Fridays and Saturdays at the pool. Friday night it's sponsored by the Lions Club from 6:30 to 8. And Saturday it's by Christine Dewitt's Real Estate, and it's from 4:30 to 6 or 6:30. So that's just public information. And so people, please use it. It's being given to you, so please use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. If I could just interrupt and point out that I received word that the town of Collingwood has closed up their pool for major renovations. And as a result, I think we should be expecting more people to come and use our pool, which is kind of nice to see. So thank you for bringing that up. Councillor Lamers. Hello, John. How are you doing?
Good day, Your Worship. Good. Just a short one. June 29th, attended the opening of the Newell Farmers Market for another year. We had a pretty good turnout that night, a nice night. July 1st, I attended the parade at the New Lowell Campground. It was a great afternoon. They had a nice parade through the park put on by the staff and residents of the park. It was great. And another accident at Center Line in County Road 9 yesterday again. We got to do something more with that intersection.
Getting
All driver training.
Thank you.
all right. Councillor Lamers, please stay safe. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Patterson, how are you, Tom?
Good, thank you. Top of my list was asking for digital participation to be reviewed, and I'll leave that to the last guy standing. Climate Action Committee are getting requests from people that want to be involved in it some way. So I have a question on their behalf. How do they find out, first of all, what the Climate Action Committee is doing in terms of reference, where they could fit in? Is their memberships open and can they apply? Those general questions. Don't have to have the answers today. I'm just passing on the question. Hopefully that will be for us soon, as it is a crisis.
I believe it's coming. I believe there's a report. Mr. CAO, you have a report on the establishment of that committee?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Your Worship, my original proposal to council was that I would set up meetings with various groups in the community.
Yeah.
I do have some scheduled, some not until September. The idea was to really get everybody focusing on how we want to look at the community as it relates to 5 different areas that we identified as being the 5 capitals. And it was from that point that I wanted to work on getting people interested. There will be people right now that are interested in the committee, and I respect that, but there'll be some others that might want to be interested as well. And I'd like to get a good mixture. So that's really what I proposed to council at that time period. But if council wants to move on an action committee before that, I will. But I would rather wait to have an opportunity to speak to some of those community groups that may typically not be thinking about, climate or other areas of the community. They may be thinking about something else, but how does that impact them as a resident here? And maybe they should be involved.
Okay, well, we look forward to that.
One suggestion I'll pass on, just as we had these informal discussions, is they have a lot of questions in terms of the scope, and they see it as a big issue, but they're happy that it's being done at our level. Would I, as a suggestion that seems to go over well when I talked to them, I've had talked to about 10 people about it independently, is, in fact, there was a group that gathered. So maybe we have an informal pick, an information center. And just let's test the pulse of the community and see who come out. Profile some of the people as well. In terms of, I don't think there's, I'm not sure if there's any interest in this, but most of the people I've talked to were younger folks. About half of them new, and 80% female. Say 8 or 9. So there seemed to be kind of there's an interest there. I see some heads nodding in the back, like it's very knowingly. So,
Excellent.
Let's find out who wants to be on it, and
I
maybe
would suggest as an action item, Councillor Patterson, perhaps you could meet with myself and the CAO, and maybe we could find an opportunity for a public consultation, which would be a good PIC opportunity.
And the last thing I'll talk about is a mention, because I know we're going to talk about it as part of our agenda. Did take quite a few calls, as I'm sure everyone has, on the tax installment plan. I think that we all say communication could have been a lot better. However, when we communicated that we had a general concern and we were looking after it, the concerns went away. So after they got their point across.
Yeah.
So I think that was an interesting discussion. Had several emails, telephone calls, as well as conversations. That's my report.
All right. Thank you very much. And Councillor Deneen. Hello, Phyllis. How are you?
Good evening, everyone. I just questioned Councillor Walker's saying weather-wise, the parade was great. I kind of remember being rather wet. But it was a really fun time, and my son is already planning, my chauffeur is planning for next year. It was dry in the van, I know, when you were watching the parade, Bob. And I remember the littlest drummer in the with the pipers telling me she was soaked when I asked her how her parade was. She said she was soaked. And I'm sure anybody watching the parade knows what I'm talking about, little Ava. My hubby and I went to the music market and park-it on Thursday, and he bought his Lions Club Mustang tickets in person this year instead of having to send in a check or make a phone call. He thought that was great. And just on a personal note out there, I just want everybody, with the recent communication outages we've had, I just want everybody now more than ever to check in with their friends, neighbors, family, especially if they're living alone. Just check in with everybody, make sure everybody's okay. And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Good advice. Always good to check in with your neighbors if you haven't spoken to them for a while. Good stuff. All right, I'm going to go to the deputy mayor next because I think Councillor McKechnie wants to be the last person. So.
Not much to add. I'm
okay.
Kind of county was my gig this month, so it was.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Leishman.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Hi, Connie.
I wish I had a voice. Okay. I was pleased to go to the graduation at SCI last week, and boy. We're in good hands. That's all I can say. We've got great graduates out there. We've got amazing kids that are going to look after us. I feel really good about it. So it was a great night. Went to the Canada Day parade, and I have to agree with Phyllis, so I got soaked. But I hitched a ride on the wagon with the G&E. They were kind enough to give me a seat, so I wasn't quite as wet as I could have been. But it was all right. It did stop. So it was okay. It was actually a really good parade. And thank you, John, for doing that. I had calls, of course, like Councillor Patterson did about the tax payment schedule. But I think a lot of people are understanding it after you sort of give them a little, you'll have to listen to them. Basically, they just want to talk. So yeah, I listened a lot this week, and it was good. They felt, and actually after I listened, they said thank you. So good thing to remember if you're a future counselor. Just listen. Sunnydale Hall, we're going to be starting the building in September.
Yay.
So I'm so happy about that. I can't tell you. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Leishman. Hello, Councillor Broderick. Or should I say parade marshal?
No. No, and thank you everyone for the accolades, but that was, as we all know, that was mostly Rhonda and
yes,
the ATV club. Well, most of it was going to be on Canada Day, July 1st. I partook in the Clearview Canada Day festivities, and I really want to thank everyone that partook, looked on, or helped in any way, with a special shout out to Central Ontario ATV Club for stepping up in the 11th hour and organizing this year's parade. After the parade, we then moved down to Centennial Park and took in the celebrations there that were hosted by the Stainer Heritage Society, and that was an awesome event as well. And also that evening, we attended the excellent fireworks display in Creemore, put on by the Creemore Legion with the mayor and the first lady.
That's correct.
And it was a great night. This past Thursday, I attended the music market and park
at Station Park in Stayner, and what a crowd that night. Is that right? It was impressive. It was just awesome to see people enjoying themselves, and you could see from our vantage point, we could see some of our senior citizens just light up, and it was quite a thing to see. Anyways, that's it for me.
All right. Thank you very much, Councillor Broderick. And again, congratulations and thank you for your help. Mr. McKechnie, I'd like to go first and then I'll come to you.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to acknowledge that I attended Collingwood Collegiate Institute graduation, as well as Our Lady of the Bay Secondary School graduation. I was very honored to be there and it was a pleasure. Thank you to Councillor Leishman for taking over the duties at Stayner Collegiate. And I'm regretfully, I was not able to be there, but pleased that you were able to be there for sure. Good for you. I do want to acknowledge Canada Day. Two things also that have not been mentioned. First of all, the Legion, congratulations to the Legion and in Creemore for putting on a really good fun event. They had some good youth activities inside the hall. We were down there to share cupcakes with them. That was a lot of fun. Outside, the Station 4 firefighters organized their annual street hockey tournament, which was a blast. Teams participated from all over our area, and congratulations to the former members of Station 1 firefighters who came out victorious in the little hockey tournament. So that was fun. Also, I attended with the First Lady. I went to Huron Meadows and met many of the residents there as they were having a Canada Day celebration. So it was really nice to join them for Canada Day as well. And again, congratulations to the Stayner Heritage Society for putting on a good show in the park. And thank you to our tourism staff for assisting with all that. It worked out really well. I do wish, if I may, I'd like to speak about Music Market in Parket. It was already mentioned what a terrific event it was on Thursday night. And I'm not sure if I don't have access to this, but is Terry Vachon on the call tonight, or is he away?
I think he's still away.
I think he's still away. So if I may, I'd like to direct to you, Mr. CAO. I took two very clear concerns about Music Market in Parket in Thursday night in Stayner. And both of those concerns were directed to the fact that there is a single porta potty and the place was packed. And I would think that we should be able to find some funding to add an additional porta potty to the location, given that we do not have permanent washrooms there. So if we could have it either investigated or somebody look into that the park itself had so many people there that the single potty was needing servicing, you know what I'm saying? So
it's an important piece of infrastructure.
It is an important, critical piece of infrastructure for the success of Music Market in Parket, period. Thank you very much. So if we could have that looked into, I would appreciate that. Mr. Walker.
Your worship, the Heritage Building, the museum is also open for washrooms. So that's maybe
yes,
we need to have some sign direction there so that people are aware of that as well.
So Mr. Walker, I didn't want to share it, but since you bring it up, I'll share it. It was also out of service. Also needing service, if you know what I mean. So there you go. So there was a significant number of people at that facility and we were overwhelmed. So there you go. Okay. We can just take note of that. All right. Thank you. Mr. McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I feel honored to be following porta potties and dirty washrooms.
Well, somebody's got to do it, as they say.
Anyway, thank you very much. So regarding, I have three comments here. Regarding the Climate Action Committee, yes, I agree with Councillor Patterson. I think an informal meeting would be appropriate because I as well have had numerous people, I shouldn't say numerous, several people, I suppose, that have approached me wondering how to get involved, when the Climate Action Committee is going to get going. And my response to them generally has been, look, you got to give us a little bit of time here. This is new. We're short-staffed. This is the basically the clerk's department that's going to be putting together these terms of reference and such. And, and this is an election year. So we are short-staffed, and I told everybody just back off a little bit, give us a little bit of time. But I think in the spirit of communication, I think maybe an informal meeting would be appropriate, and I'd be willing to host that meeting if that's appropriate. So anyway, I'll talk to the CAO and to Councillor Patterson about that, and yourself, your worship, and such, and maybe we can get going on some sort of an informal meeting just to keep everybody aware of what's happening in that regard. Second item I have is regarding the Singhampton Cenotaph, and just bear with me on this. Just a couple of comments as a bit of background, and then one simple question. So essentially, this township, we have donated $2,000 to the Cenotaph in order for them to put a new flagpole in, and such, and they're very appreciative of that. And so they're working on it this year, and they can't put it in the spot where the current flagpole is because there's a time capsule there. So they can't take the time capsule out. So they have to put the new flagpole in about 15 feet away. Fair enough. So they're going to have a lovely new flagpole with the Canadian flag on it. And then they said, well, what about if we leave that old flagpole there, which sort of is a wonky flagpole and such? And they said, can we fly the Clearview Township flag on that? And so I said, well, I'll ask. And because the Singhampton Cenotaph is, I'm not sure how, it's not really Clearview Township property. So is it appropriate for us to fly the Clearview Township flag on that flagpole?
I'll give you some commentary. First of all, Councillor McKechnie, I was enthusiastically supportive of your recommendation at the budget discussion to support replacing the flagpole at the Cenotaph in Singhampton. And I drove by it just this past weekend, and I looked at it again. I thought, when's that flagpole getting replaced?
Right.
As I'm driving along, I didn't make a note, but certainly since you bring it up, I absolutely know that I did think of that very point. And so I would encourage it to be replaced for sure. But I don't think we should keep a rickety old flagpole in place of a new one 15 feet away. So if there's a time capsule there, perhaps they just need a little bit of concrete poured on top of there to indicate that there's a time capsule where the flagpole formerly was.
Okay, I
my
agree.
Suggestion. Second, the flag of the Township of Clearview respectfully can be flown pretty much anywhere as long as it's in a respectful manner. We are a government organization, so I've had the opportunity to hand them out to various people at different times. So if someone needs one and wishes to use it in a respectful manner, we'll be happy to do that.
Okay. All right. I'll take that message to the committee. I agree with you. I mean, the reason why we gave them the money for the new flagpole was because the old flagpole is wonky. It's sort of leaning over. Plus, there was an injury when they were trying to raise the flag on it. So, the fact is, sure, we can run the Clearview flag up there, but we still have it's on an old flagpole with, and we could have another injury. So I agree with you. I went and had a look at it. I thought, just cut the sucker off at the ground and put the new flagpole in 15 meter or feet away, cut the old flagpole off at the ground and such. So I'll take that message to them. But if they're adamant about raising the Clearview Township flag, I'll tell them to come back and talk to us, but they won't get, I don't think I'll support that. I think the Canadian flag is good enough there. So thank you very much for that. I didn't want to proceed further on that if we couldn't, in fact, raise the flag there, if it wasn't appropriate anyway. So anyway, okay, so that's done. Lastly, so we've seen the letter to the editor from Samantha Marcus in the Creemore Echo, and Mr. Witzke wrote it tonight, and it got me thinking about our public participation policy. At our virtual council meetings during COVID, we instituted an online public participation policy. The public engagement was the highest ever. I mean, we had incredible public engagement. And now we're back to requiring the public to come into the council chambers to voice their concerns, yet we're still requiring staff to attend these meetings from home. So I think we're sending mixed messages here. We're telling the public to come in and participate in public participation in person, and yet staff are attending from home. So I think we're sending mixed messages. doesn't quite make sense to me. Even though taking COVID out of the equation, there are still people that can't make it here personally due to mobility issues. And I notice tonight we have 2 representatives of the Accessibility Committee here, Councillor Broderick and former Councillor Bronny, and on the Accessibility Committee. So for the people at home with the mobility issues, I think they deserve to be able to send their concerns in through the online forum that we had during COVID. So recognizing this, I would like to make a motion that we reinstate the online participation, public participation portal, and proceed with a hybrid system of virtual and in-person public participation. So those that want to participate at home, like through the online portal can, or if someone wants to come and participate in person, they can. And I think the only downside is that maybe we might not have as many people in the audience here as normal. We might go from 4 down to 3 or something like that. But anyway, I see that as being the only downside. So anyway, I'd like to put that motion forward and then open to discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councilor McKechnie. Since this is public participation, is this council reports, I'll allow a motion, as we said, and I'm looking for a seconder to the councilor's motion. Is there a seconder? You're seconding the motion? Thank you. All right. So the motion is on the floor for a discussion. Is there anybody who would like to discuss this this opportunity that the councilor is bringing forward? Councilor Patterson.
Yeah, so I did reflect on it when we changed the policy and to see what kind of reaction we'd have. I think it's a good thing, but it has implications in terms of our staff, for example. So I do the same thing again as we did before, is I'm not a big fan of these pop-up motions during ward report, I must say, because this is supposed to be a deliberative body. And when the staff spends an awful lot of time, I'm sermonizing now, I'm sorry, but they spend an awful lot of time preparing the reports for us to make good decisions. I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing we recognize what the public wants, but I think we should be making good decisions with facts. So I would ask that we direct this to staff and give us some direction. Presumably the clerk's office would have an opinion on this. And I'm all for increasing the attendance virtually or physically. But I do agree, we learned some lessons here in the pandemic that people are wanting to speak, and when we give them a channel, it works in our benefit. Let's learn something new from that. So my friendly amendment, if you like, is that we direct this towards staff to come back.
Sorry, looking for a friendly amendment. You guys?
You go first. And when would staff come back to us? Probably within, could we have that back to us, that report back to us within, for the next meeting?
The clerk is acknowledging, she probably can.
Yeah. Okay, I don't have a problem with that, with the friendly amendment. What about you, Barry?
Your worship, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
I don't think we need a report, to be honest with you. Here we go, another report on, to me, a simple decision. I will support it if the mover is willing to support it and they get us moving forward. I just don't see why we need to make a report. We've got a system that's been working. I heard complaints within my own household. You know who that was, Mrs. Deputy Mayor, but why did we do this? And why can't she just go online and send something in? And then I heard from several seniors who sort of said the same thing, you know, why can't we? And it's specifically for public participation, where it becomes, you know, knowledgeable to the entire public that somebody has done this. Now, his worship indicated in the numerous emails we've received, which is correct, people can, but the rest of the public doesn't necessarily become aware of those emails or the issues that they're bringing up when, you know, when they're sent to us personally. Where this way it becomes public knowledge that other people are presenting something. So
okay, so this is on the amendment. The friendly has been accepted. The seconder is not accepting. Is that correct?
What do you think, Mr. Mover.
Am I allowed to ask the clerk a question?
Okay, so I'd like to just halt discussion here for a moment. I want to clarify, one, we are in board reports.
Right.
And as the chair of the meeting, I can accept motions from members of council and deem and rule whether we can accept them or not as the chair of the meeting. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm giving grace to allow councilors to bring forward items that are not complicated to deal with. That's what I'm doing as your chair and the mayor. And that's why I'm doing it. Just a moment ago, the clerk leaned over and reminded me that motions like this need to be written and submitted underneath notice of motion, as we've heard recently from Councillor Leishman's motion 2 or maybe 3 meetings ago. So I want to clarify, I've researched this, and that is the truth, that as the chair of the meeting, I can call motions from the floor as I need. And Madam Clerk, do you concur?
Through your worship, you are chair of the meeting.
Thank you. As the chair of the meeting, that's how I'm dealing with it. So thank you. So that clarifies why we're actually where we are. Now, we're at a point where we have a motion which is made by Mr. McKechnie and seconded by the deputy mayor. A friendly has been asked for by Councillor Patterson. And so I'll go back to where we are. Mr. McKechnie.
Okay, just to keep it simple, let's get this over and done with tonight. No, I do not accept the friendly amendment. Let's vote on it. I think we all know what the motion's about. So let's.
Mr. Patterson, anything further then?
Obviously respect the position of the chair, but the fact that the chair provides the opportunity for council to deliberate doesn't mean the council has all the facts. It's a general statement. So the only reason I would, I go back to first principles again. It was our clerk's office that came with a report saying this would be the change, away from the digital and back to the physical presence. There, out of respect for her office, there must have been a reason for it. So what is it? Why did we make the change? Is there something we don't know?
Okay, I could answer that if you like. I consulted with the clerk and our previous clerk. Madam Clerk was our current clerk. And by the way, celebrations for Sasha and her husband who have had a baby today or the other day. So congratulations to them. Clearview family is expanding. I had a conversation with Councillor Patterson, and I expressed my great concern that this council return to normal operations as soon as we possibly can. And in that is why we're actually sitting at this table with these plastic dividers between us, all right, that we have the public available in the room. And we've now moved public participation back. We have, I wish our camera could turn around and see it, but the spacing of the chairs in the chambers is significantly different than what it was when we started here in 2019. It was perhaps up to 40 or 50 people, 50 chairs perhaps sitting here. So the room is not in exactly the configuration that we started with, but we are returning to normal. I'd like to add that the point about staff attending or not attending, that was brought forward through the CAO's office and our HR manager, who indicated that staff could choose to be here or not, much like each of you as members of council could choose to be in this room or not, given that we're going to continue to deliver our council meetings in a Zoom/YouTube environment. So the CAO acknowledges that that is a discussion that was made at the senior management team, and they decided that they didn't need to attend. Is that correct, Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Your Worship. We're going back about a month and a half, maybe even 2 months ago when this change was being considered. It might even been earlier than that. And we were still following certain COVID protocols for the number of people that could be in the chambers at one time. This is why the partitions are up. And we also have a limited number of people that we can space at 6 feet apart. That's primarily why some of the senior staff can opt to be at home as opposed to being here. It was to reduce the number of people in this room so that we could have more people come in as public participation so we can meet those numbers. But with that, look, everything's changing. It's been changing consistently now for the last month or so. I think we can adjust. I would also suggest that I think the public participation piece is still alive as it relates to any public hearing that you may have as a council, and you get a lot of public participation on that. I'm not sure if there's a technical issue as to why we can't bring too many public people into the meeting or not. Perhaps I'll reach out to Sasha to find out what she was thinking at the time. But there were concerns that she had, and she was trying to put it together where she felt it could work. So there's no intention here to disrespect anybody in the public. We will accept any information from them. We'll answer the phones. And if we have to adjust here to make them feel like they can participate at this meeting, we'll adjust to do so. It's not our intent to offend anybody.
All right, so Mr. Patterson, I think I've answered some of your questions and concerns. You have more? Go ahead.
Motion on the floor wasn't accepted as a friendly. My concern for doing that was just the conversation we had. So my point would be that before we decided not to deal with it, maybe we should have brought that to council with a bit of a staff report at the time it came to us. So my questions are answered. I'll withdraw my motion, and I'm prepared to vote on it based on the information I got here tonight.
All right, appreciate that. So we're back to, I see the deputy mayor's got his card. Go ahead, and then I'll look for other cards.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate that, and truly appreciate the comments that His Worship said that we all have the ability to choose whether to be here or be here virtually. Our staff has the choice to be here in reality or virtually. Why aren't we extending the same courtesy to the public? I feel it's appropriate to extend that same courtesy to them. We love seeing you here. We love seeing you come in. But Councillor McKechnie said, yeah, our public participation increased quite a bit when we opened up that opportunity for people to participate virtually. So obviously I second the motion. I'm going to support it.
All right, thank you. I'm going to acknowledge Councillor Lamers, and then I saw Mr. McKechnie one more time. Mr. Lamers.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, one question to the clerk or the CAO. The system was in place earlier. Is it still in place and not put too much stress on use to continue it?
You're suggesting to actually reactivate the online portal?
Yeah, if it's possible.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to go to Mr. CAO on that.
There is a slight difference when somebody's participating. For example, they would come into a waiting room as it relates to the Zoom, and then they would have to be let in by the clerk. That's the one little hiccup that I think has to be understood and managed when you're having public participation. They can only participate at that point in the meeting, meaning the rest of the meeting belongs to the council. So it's important that council and or staff can re-participate in the meeting at any one time, but anybody under public participation, that's their time limit. Once it's over, they can't participate anymore. They can still watch the council meeting, but they can't participate. So there's a little technical things that Sasha's aware of. And
if I may,
sorry. Yeah.
Mr. CAO, I believe you've got one item there that's confusing, and that is that the public participation period is part of the council agenda. Attending members of the public who wish to attend by Zoom meeting would only happen at a public meeting. Like we would allow members of the public to pre-register at a public meeting, right, underneath the Planning Act.
A public hearing, that's correct.
Public hearing, and so then we would, during the Zoom crisis, we would have the members of the public join us at a public meeting / hearing underneath the Planning Act, and they could apply to do so. During public participation, which is the portion of our council agenda that we're discussing through Councillor McKechnie's motion, there is no opportunity for the public to participate by virtual participation. Currently, it's only by internet, or it would have been only by the email portal and their email message would then become part of the agenda.
Right. Maybe I'm not explaining it
Sure, yeah.
properly. So let's say somebody's at home and they want right now, they would have to come in here to publicly participate.
At this very moment, that's correct.
Right. So if they're at home and they want to participate via Zoom, they're not set up the same way as we are set up on Zoom. They're put in a waiting room and then they're brought in to participate and then they're put back in the waiting room and they can still view everything.
But Mr. Ferguson, we have never, and the practice has not been to use public participation period for Zoom participation by members of the public. They've been able to write emails and they're attached to our agenda, and I or the chair of the meeting will review the items and answer any
And
questions if possible.
I believe that's why we accepted written comments.
Correct.
And so the process was anybody could write in. You kept all the letters with you and you'd mention who wrote in.
Correct.
But you wouldn't read each letter.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. The clerk would like to interject on both of us, and I think that's a good idea.
That's what occurred. All I'm saying is that if you were to have public participation, it would have to be set up in the waiting room format. It's a different process in how you use Zoom.
Okay, so you're actually looking for even further expansion of the public participation formula.
No. Council's going to vote tonight on whether or not it can happen. I believe it can happen, but it's a slightly different process.
Oh, boy. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Okay, thank you, through your worship. So just a couple of things to consider. Right now, under our section 6.2, under the procedure bylaw, we have a limit of 15 minutes for the public participation period. So if council were to have that option to permit electronic participation, what I would recommend is that we limit the number of participants being invited to the council meeting electronically. And the reason why is because if one member so if we have 3 members, it's 5 minutes each, that's 15 minutes. So what my recommendation is if we were going to, we'd limit to either 3 or 4 participants to keep it within that 15-minute time limit. But that's obviously a decision of council. One thing from past experience that we have done is that when a member, if they are going to be participating electronically, is once their participation's been completed, like they've spoken, then what would happen is they'd be actually removed from the meeting. And then they can obviously continue watching the movie I guess, depending,
The drama.
Yeah, they'd be able to continue watching the meeting via YouTube, et cetera, but they would no longer be part of the meeting itself.
Yeah.
But those are just some of my recommendations. If that's something that council would like, we can definitely look at that. And if you'd like that actually be put right in the procedure bylaw as a future item, then we can amend the procedure bylaw to do so. Okay.
I believe we're getting a little off topic, and I'm frankly going to blame our CIO for us getting off topic. If you don't mind, John, you're going to own this one for now. And that is because the councillor's motion was to return to our public participation by email using the email portal. Is that correct?
That is exactly right. So let's take this Zoom out of it completely. Let's take any sort of video thing out completely. All it is if someone wants to make their comments, like during COVID, if someone wanted to make comments to council, they typed it in basically an email format, but it was on the Clearview Township website, public participation portal. That would then, those written comments would get attached to the agenda. And that's what I'm saying that we go back to. So it doesn't mean that anyone's in the waiting room, the Zoom waiting room. It doesn't, so that's, so let's take any sort of video or Zoom right out of it. It's just written comments.
Okay. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I know you're keen. I want to be clear so everybody understands this, that the motion from Mr. McKechnie is looking for us to return to the COVID formula for public participation period, which would include the online portal tool, period. There'd be no virtual Zoom participation by any members of the public in a council meeting. Are we there? I'm going to go.
If I may,
I'm getting lots of cards here. Very short, and then to Phyllis, and then to.
Yeah, I'll be short. I'm totally, that's what I supported. If you want to speak to us, you got to be here. You personally got to be here if you want to speak to us directly. But if you just want your message given as a public, so the public can see it, know what it is, then you can send that email through the portal. And it does get registered as part of the agenda. The mayor usually recaps what was said in those is the process. So it's just opening the portal. That's it. Not doing virtual things where people can talk and all that stuff.
Yeah. All right. So Madam Clerk, we've now clarified what the motion from the mover and the seconder, correct?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes,
Okay.
we have.
Okay, so we're going to start again. Members of council, any further on the debate? Phyllis Deneen, Councillor Deneen.
I think it's public participation is 15 minutes. And the mayor will go over the emails that come in. And then if there are 3 people here that want their 5 minutes, that's it. And yeah, it's fine as long as the mayor is happy to review and do that. Yeah, and just.
All right, well, thank you for your confidence. Mr. Walker, then the deputy mayor again.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think what you have to look at is public participation in 2 sections. If you're going to put the portal back in being. Section 1, email only, period. Simple. You want to submit through the portal, through the proper process, you send an email. Part 2 is if you want to be involved in public participation, you must be here in person if you wish to address council publicly and or put yourself on the delegation. To me, that's fairly simple. That's the way we need to look at it. And the other thing I might suggest is if we do go to the portal, email portal, that we look at Friday noon being the deadline for submissions instead of Monday at noon, to give our staff an opportunity to get things ready for Monday, not having to deal with submissions that come in over the weekend or on Monday morning. So I think Friday at noon for email submissions should be the deadline. Thank you.
Mr. Walker, appreciate that. Can I ask, are you looking for a friendly amendment? Because you're asking for an amendment. Are you looking for a friendly amendment or are you looking for an amendment?
Friendly amendment, Your Worship.
We have thumbs up and thumbs up from the mover second.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea that Councillor Walker has, that the deadline be Friday at noon.
Okay, so we'll move that to Friday at noon in the motion. Madam Clerk, understood?
Yes, now through Your Worship, we would have to make, yes, no, that's fine. We can do that.
Excellent, good. I see Tom, but I got Barry first. Tom, stand by. Go ahead, Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. In response to Councillor Deneen, the 3 people in 5 minutes was only going to apply if we're doing it virtually. We often have more than 3 people here. We might have 5 people here and still only take up 10 minutes. So I don't think we should be restricting the number of
No,
people.
it just says each person is limited.
Yeah, it has,
to 5.
again, the maximum 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's, the maximum is the 15 minutes, whether it's 5, 2, 1 or whatever. So.
Yes, I realize that.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that with you. So we're both on the same page. Great, thank you.
Okay. I see you, Councillor Patterson. But if I may, I'd like to jump in on the timing issue. The timing issue, of course, is always subject to the chair and how the chair is conducting the meeting. And if you guys can think back to 2019, many times I let people speak much longer than 5 minutes and or much longer than 15 minutes for that matter. So I've been rather patient when it comes to the microphones. So I'm just saying that while it's in paper and it is a procedure, again, given that the chair has ability to do that, that's what I was doing. Carry on. Mr. Patterson, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, you are the chair. Totally.
For today, anyway.
You have control of the meeting. Absolutely, 100%.
Tom?
So just for clarification, because Councillor Walker used the term email, I assume what you meant was email form. It's an online form. Everyone's kind of got used to that. Right, through the portal.
Through the portal that we had previous for
So-
COVID is how I.
Because that's what's being asked
Number one,
for.
yes.
Just finally got everybody trained on it. So good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else with any comments on this great line of discussion? Councillor Deneen, we spent more than 15 minutes on this. See, there you go. Nobody else? Okay, I got a couple comments I'd like to just put out there. While I'm generally in favor of the ideals that have been presented, I would like to point out that it is troubling to me when I see many messages being addressed to us in the public participation portal that are that do contain false information. Our previous clerk, Ms. Helmke, was very sensitive to the fact that there was false information, if not even straight up incorrect information being presented. And she, in her authority, outside of ours as the elected body, she would refuse to include it on agendas. There were emails that were received that did not appear because they were simply false information. And they were also completely outside of our area of responsibility as a municipal government. And so the clerk's office does have authority to do that as the highest crown within this corporation, and does that and will continue to do that, I would hope, even with our new clerk, Barb. So just to be clear, sometimes we receive emails that are just not appropriate for an agenda and are not going to be published on our website because they do not contain appropriate information. So I want to state that. The second thing I want to state is about the effort that I took to review each email and find information and make notes. And I have them on my iPad here where I would write information from each person and try to associate some of their content. I do not believe it's appropriate for the mayor to read someone else's public participation comments. So that's why I am not reading letters verbatim at a public participation. I believe that that's not appropriate role for the mayor to read someone else's question and complaint. I'll review it, I'll make comment, and I'll try to represent it to the best of my ability. But the point is, the message has been received by us, by all members of council, and gets published on our agenda so people have the opportunity to see it for themselves if they're genuinely interested. Otherwise, I'm just going to review it and summarize it. I think that's a fair statement. I'm getting lots of nods from members of the council, so I'm acknowledging. I think I've mentioned this before. I know Gord, who wrote to us at great length in regards to some issues. He asked for it specifically to be read, and it was not read because I, as the chair and mayor, decided not to read it to be consistent with all of the others that I've been dealing with. And yet he then came and asked to be a delegation through the clerk's office and then came in and read his letter. That's why that went down, folks. That's exactly how it went down. And congratulations for him for his persistence in wanting to make sure that our council heard his letter. Good for him. And I would hope that other members of the public continue to do that too. The last thing I want to state is that this council is now being recorded. We have a camera, we have a recording, we're on YouTube, but that does not take away from the fact that this is business running this municipality. This is a serious job. And we have to take that seriously. And I believe all members of the council do. This is not entertainment. There are people sitting at home right now that have drinking games as to whether so-and-so says something or something says. That's true, because I've had members of the public tell me that. This is not entertainment. This is business and this is hard work. And this is something that each one of our members of council sit here and think about every single day when we have our, regular routine, whether you're shopping at the store or buying a new pair of shoes or filling up a gas, somebody will always ask you something about council business. You're on duty 24 hours, folks. You guys all know that. That's why we're here. So I want to be clear. Public participation by email is not entertainment. It should be for the business of this corporation and to bring the business forward for this municipality. That's what this is about. Having people appear right in our room, in our chambers here, is an important part of democracy, to be able to have the public come and either sit in the gallery and not participate in a verbal manner, but be able to witness and participate in it. They do it at Queen's Park. They do it at every council I know. They have a public gallery format. It's a public process. So that's why I think this, what we have here, is a good thing. The last thing I want to point out, cheapers, in my first term on council, I sat where Councillor Broderick is sitting, and Mayor Ferguson was sitting right here. And I brought up the ideal that we need to have a public participation in the first place. This council didn't even have it in 2006. It took us 2 years of discussion and debate. Councillor Walker was there. He nods his head. He knows that it took us 2 years to change our procedure bylaw. Councillor Patterson, I believe you actually seconded that motion back in the day, that we bring forward a public participation component to our meeting. The debate at the time was where the public participation would actually sit on the agenda. And it's always been my belief that if a member of the public wishes to speak to council and come to the meeting, and they are determined that they want to do it, like Gord did, that they contact the clerk and ask for a delegation. I personally believe, it's not that way in our procedure right now, but I personally believe that a delegation request should take priority over a public participation session, because a public that person's made an effort to reach out to the clerk and to make a presentation. So I think that person should be higher on the agenda than the public participation portal. The public participation portal currently is ahead of our deputations. So when we look at our procedure bylaw in the future, that's something I'd like to see. If somebody is actually wanting to make a delegation and has gone through the effort, that we should give them the respect to put them as a priority, rather than somebody who just showed up 5 minutes before the meeting and walked up to the mic. That's my point. Sorry, I don't need to be going on, but you've really got me going, Councillor McKechnie. Thank you. I don't think there's anything further, as if Ms. Clerk did question me a couple of times here. Now, Ms. Clerk, would you read the motion and add your comment you shared with me a moment ago?
Okay, so through your worship, proposed amendment in hearing council is that this would be a procedure bylaw amendment, that the procedure bylaw be amended to include provisions for electronic public participation by email at a council meeting, and further that the deadline for electronic comments be submitted by Friday at noon prior to the meeting, and further that the procedure bylaw be amended and brought forward to council for consideration.
Can I ask? Should it also say regular council meetings? Because we do not have public participation at any special council meeting.
Your worship, we can definitely do that.
It's already in the bylaw. That's what we do. I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
For sure. And it would be incorporated by a report with regards to the reasoning behind the wording. Okay.
Mr. McKechnie, are you comfortable with the motion as presented?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no problem.
All right. Nothing further from members of council? All right, council, I'm prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? Oh, no opposed? And it carries. Thank you. All right. You know, you have to ask yourself as a chair why you even allow these motions to take up your time. But thank you. And thank you, council. It's been a good discussion so far. All right. Looking on to my agenda, we are at item number 12, Department Reports and Bylaws, Community Report, Community Services. All right. CS 045-2022, it's a zoning bylaw amendment for 794047, County Road 124, Clearview. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive report CS 045-2022, zoning bylaw amendment 2021-31-ZB, dated July 11, 2022. And item 2, that bylaw 22-055 for the lands municipally known as 794047, County Road 124, Clearview and legally described as 794047 County Road 124, concession 12, part lots 17 and 18 be presented to council for approval. Okay. Mover and seconder on this motion, please. Mr. Lamers, seconded by Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Council, I know we have a staff member on board. Mr. Ainley, I believe, is on. There he is. Hello, Nick. Would you like to jump in and give us commentary that in regards to this report? This is a result of a public meeting. So, Nick,
yes,
go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Just as a brief overview, you may recall this was brought to the mandatory public meeting was in September 13th of 2021. So this was the recommendation report coming back to council for consideration. I think the report was pretty thorough, but as a brief overview, so the applicant is located at the Ultramar gas station in Singhampton. So this is located just in the southern boundaries of the settlement area there. The applicant seeking to partially redevelop the property. They're going to be demolishing a portion of the existing structure that contains the existing motel use. And they're also seeking to put a new addition on to the other side of the dwelling, or sorry, the other side of the existing commercial building, and incorporate a new Tim Hortons drive-through restaurant on the property, as well as an LCO outlet on the site. As a part of that process, the applicants have applied for a zoning bylaw amendment, which is currently in consideration, and there's also concurrent site plan approval application, which will be brought forward to council at a future date. The zoning bylaw amendment has been required to request revisions to the zoning bylaw, specifically to recognize some existing deficiencies, such as the existing setback distance to the frontage of the property for the existing gas station pumps, as well as the canopy, but as well as for new variances to parking reductions, as well as setback reductions for the stacking lane requirements, location of parking space located in front of the structure. So that's basically what's before council this evening, and I'm here obviously to ask any or answer any questions that may come up.
Thank you very much, Nick. Members of council, yes, Councillor Broderick is first. Is there anybody else with any questions of this report? And Mr. McKechnie. Mr. Broderick first. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Mr. Ainley, I remember when this was brought before council, there was a number of concerns. One of them was around drainage. I wondered if you could expand on what considerations happened there.
Mr. Ainley?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, you're correct. Through the formal public consultation process, the public meeting, there was a significant amount of comments that were received. The Appendix D of the report does kind of give an overall summary and review of those comments, specifically the drainage of the site. So it's important to note that this is an existing development with existing commercial use on it. It is seeking to redevelop it. The site doesn't currently have existing stormwater management facilities, although they're proposing additional uses on the property. The updated site plan will address a lot of the existing drainage issues. So there is a dry pond located at the southeast corner of the property. And the idea is that this would capture all existing storm flows on the property and direct it through underground piping to County Road 124, whereas the site currently is basically sheets from onto County Road 124 mainly, but also to adjacent lands as well, based on the existing site condition. I'm not an engineer, so I can't go into the further details of it, but that would be my understanding based on a review of the reports that had been submitted and peer reviewed by our engineering consultant.
Okay. Also, the existing tree line, my understanding was that that's to remain?
Yeah, so that is a key component of it. So the applicant is requesting, due to the nature of the site, with the existing structure there, they are proposing to locate a drive-through lane at the rear of the property. The typical requirement for a stacking lane setback is 5 meters to any property with an existing residential use on it, which the adjacent lands to the north, to the east do have one, approximately 80 meters from the site. So there is an existing cedar hedge along the property that is located on the adjacent property owner's lands. So through this process and through the public consultation process, the applicants will be ensuring that those lands are or those existing landscaping is maintained during the construction as well as during the operation of the business into the future. Through the construction process, there will be heavy-duty silt fencing that will be located along the drip line inside the property. So this will prevent any grading or construction works taking place to damage them during the construction of it. And in addition to the existing hedge that's there, the applicant are proposing to, there's a few gaps in it. They're proposing to plant some additional plantings in that area. I believe they're white cedars. And then they are proposing to do solid board fencing along the perimeter of the rear of the property in that area. So it's approximately 85 meters of solid board fencing. So it's a double-sided fence to provide some more buffering for acoustics and nuisances such as odor or lights from that area that might project from the ordering signs in that area.
Roger?
Yeah, you just answered my third question. Okay. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I didn't write it down. Was there anybody else with any questions? Yes. Yes. Mr. Walker first, and then Mr. McKechnie. Sorry, I did miss you there, Doug. Sorry. I was actually calling up the report on my iPad. It was taking a while. I think it's a Rogers iPad. Anyhow.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Nick. Most of my questions have been asked by Councillor Broderick. The other question I had was if they are going to do some construction across the back, what about root damage to that hedge? I mean, there's going to be, has that been brought into the equation where that has been thought of? Because I'll tell you right now that some of that cedar hedge and stuff, some of those roots may go into where they're going to be doing some digging. So I just wondered if that's been looked at.
Mr. Ainley?
Yeah, so just to respond through your worship to Councillor Walker. In discussion with the applicants and through the submissions, the understanding is that there will be the silt fencing to prevent any sort of erosion or any sort of construction into it will be located at the drip line. So that's the furthest edge, basically, of the foliage of the cedar hedge there. That's where the silt fencing will come. With those type of, my understanding is those type of plantings is that majority of the root structure does not exceed beyond that drip line. It does happen, but the majority of it does stay within that area. So the intent would be to maintain all construction. And obviously the applicants are well aware of the concerns that have been raised. So through the construction process, there will be quite vigilant to ensure that those lands are protected and that the proposed new plantings will not be damaged as well during that process.
You comfortable, Mr. Walker? All right, thank you. Doug McKechnie, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Nick. I'm not prepared to vote in favor of this until I get a little bit more information. But the questions I have for you, Nick, is first of all, I've got a few questions. The new well, apparently there's a new well to be drilled. So is the old well going to be decommissioned?
Yeah, so the old well is located just to the north of the existing structure. So the new well is going to be located at the south east corner of the property. It has to be located in that location to be separated from the existing septic or the proposed septic system that's going to go on there. It's to be replaced. So the existing one will be decommissioned when the new one is drilled and constructed on the site.
Okay, thank you. So that right now there's a, what is it, a 1.3 meter setback from the northeast portion of the property line there, rather than the required 5 meters. So if that well is going to be decommissioned, looking at the map there, I was just wondering why that setback had to be as small as 1.3 meters. That stacking lane could have been moved in closer to the building. So I think that should be investigated a little bit more. The second question I have for you, I didn't see any comments from the NVCA yet. So with this being a floodplain, does the NVCA have authority or is that part of the site plan approval process for the NVCA?
So it is through both. So they are almost entirely regulated by the Conservation Authority. I unfortunately don't have access through the VPN right now to the files. I could pull it up, but I believe that NVCA have provided comments through the site plan approval process, and they don't have any concerns at this time with the current proposal based on the review of the submission so far. It may be helpful. If I can share the screen, I can pull up the existing site plan for the development, and that may help give some visual representation of what we're discussing tonight.
I'm not sure.
Sorry?
I'm not sure if I would understand it if you did pull it up.
Well, if you bear with me for one moment, please. So is everyone able to see that?
Not really, Nick.
I'll try and
clearly, but we get the idea. Go ahead, Nick. Try to describe it.
I'll try and zoom in here. So this is the existing site plan of the property. So you can see this is the portion of the existing. Again, I'm not sure if you guys can. Is that a bit clearer for you?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay,
Bit
keep
better?
going.
Yeah, I'll do it one more time.
Good.
So the existing building is located here with the proposed addition located just to the northeast portion of the existing structure. So you can see the required stacking lane is located to the rear of the structure next to the front. The location for the maximum reduction, the setback, was the 1.3 meters. So that's actually from the stacking lane to the interior side yard. So the property, it's a bit interesting because the adjacent property jogs forward. So this would be considered the interior side yard, where this would be the rear. So the reduction from the 1.3 meters is actually to that point of the property, to that portion, the stacking lane. And you can see you wouldn't be able to, it's required for the turning radius in terms of having stacking lane in that location. But unfortunately, due to the location of the existing structure, it's challenging to get this in any tighter than it was in discussions with the applicants. Where the rear property line of the site, it's a 2.6 meter setback as opposed to where the 5 meters is required. So while that would be the maximum reduction that's currently under the zoning bylaw, it would also permit a little bit larger of a setback, although not the 5 meters, it'd be the 2.6 the rear of the site.
Council.
Okay, thank you. So regarding that 1.3 meter setback, that's abuts lot 18, I believe it is. And that is a building lot, which it should be noted that there's no home on it presently. It could have one in the future. So that's actually a building lot that the Fergusons have spent their development charges on and paid all sorts of fees for. So now what we're doing is we're restricting the location where they can possibly build a house. So anyway, it's just to note that. The other thing too that my concern is that the provincial policy statement states that the impacts, and I quote, impacts from any new or expanding non-agricultural uses on surrounding agricultural operations and lands are to be mitigated to the extent feasible. And that was from the report. That seems reasonable to me. The response from the applicant and the township is that this does not apply as the lands are located within the settlement area. And now I visited the site at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, and Mr. Ferguson, who farms that property, he's provided his own mitigation by providing a 2-meter buffer from his crops to the property line. And I don't believe that he should have to do this. The onus should be on the applicant to provide the mitigation. The further, I'm just looking at my notes here. Let's have a look. I also noted that a couple of white kitchen garbage bags filled with some sort of dark, wet, mushy material. We can all imagine what dark, wet, and mushy material would be. And these kitchen garbage bags were wrapped tightly. I wasn't going to investigate what they were, but they were in the hedge, cedar hedge, on the Ferguson side of the cedar hedge. So it should be noted that agricultural guidelines indicate that when a crop being grown for human consumption is contaminated by any foreign substance, whether that be garbage or oil or whatever, then the entire crop is not marketable. So if Mr. Ferguson shows up at Call West with a truckload of corn and there's any sort of foreign material in there, and then they'll turn away his truck. They'll say, no, you can't offload any of that. So after seeing the weak response from the applicant as to how garbage will be handled, as well as the history of garbage around that property, it further causes me concern about approving this recommendation. So I have to me, there's so many unanswered questions still. So as I mentioned earlier, I can't support this recommendation as it stands. So I'm just wondering if maybe we can hit the pause button here and ask the planning department and the applicant to reach out to the Fergusons to see if solutions can be found, to see if there's any sort of middle ground here. Therefore, I was just wondering if I'd like to make a motion that we defer this item to the August 22nd meeting of council and direct the planning department to meet with the applicant and the Fergusons in the meantime to try and find some middle ground. So I'm requesting that we defer till August 22nd.
All right.
And I will not be here at that meeting. So, but that's, I figure that gives the planning department a month to deal with it.
Joining us by Zoom?
I think I'll be somewhere where Zoom will not be available. I'm hoping I'm in the middle of nowhere. So
in a Rogers zone is what you're saying.
yeah.
All right. Mr. Patterson, is that a yes for a seconding on that motion to defer? All right. Before we move forward, I'll accept the second. I'll accept the motion. Mr. Ainley and or Miss Burton, I believe she's with us there. Either one of you, can you advise what is the problematic issue in regards to delaying this any further? Is there any problem delaying it? I'll go to you, Nick, first, Nick.
Yeah, so just in terms of my first question, did you want me to respond to any of the initial items that were brought up regarding the PPS? I'm happy to do so in terms of the other questions that come up. I can also advise that I have been in consultation with the adjacent property owner through comments as well as over the phone quite thoroughly, and I believe I understand their comments pretty in depth in terms of what the main issues are with it, and working with the applicants to try and address them as best as possible. Obviously, staff are happy to work with any direction provided by council on that. The only it would be to the applicants. I understand that they are very keen to proceed forward in terms of with the development of the site. So there is obviously an appeal period that follows the rezoning amendment. So having the zoning go forward, having the appeal period, and then we're working to finalize the current site plan agreement. I believe that is that would be the impact to the developer themselves. But other than that, we can obviously, it is up to council, and we're happy to meet with the applicant as well as the adjacent property owner to see if we can facilitate any more remediation on the property.
Okay. And while I appreciate what you're saying, the site plan agreement would be the instrument that would certainly set down some of the rules and so on of the site. That's very much a common practice in planning across Ontario. I'm more interested in the problematic issue of delay when an applicant brings forward a proposal and the time and the ticker keeps ticking. Do we find ourselves as a council in a position of no decision? And so I look to Mara Burton for that. I know you've seen some experience in that in your career. Ms. Burton, do you have a comment about our potential delay in approving this?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. It is a difficult situation when you're trying to balance the two property owners. I think that the department has done everything it can reasonably till this point. I just will note that it is very difficult to get applications moved forward in a quick time. I am actually working, just for your information, on a report to council about Bill 109, where actually the province of Ontario has now made it mandatory that site plans actually go through, site plan agreements actually are approved by staff and not to go to council. And part of the reason for that is to try to ensure that we do move forward applications, because we can get quite caught up in, certain little things. Well, they may be little to some, they may not be little to others, but we do try to bring forward things that we feel are reasonable at this time, and the report is to support the application at this time. But most certainly council sets that, so it will be up to council what direction they want to do. So
okay, so before I see all the cards flashing here, folks, I'm just trying to before we move on with the discussion on the councilor's motion, whether the municipality would be put in a situation where we are in a non-decision. Like what would be the date of that, Ms. Burton, given that we have a meeting at the end of the month and then we have one in August, that this report would be adjusted or revamped or amended to bring it to council for a majority vote?
yes, thank you. I believe, and I have to kind of go into my memory banks here, but I believe it's 120 days that we have to give a decision on a zoning amendment. I think we're probably well past that now. Perhaps Nick knows when that application came in, but 120 days is about 4 months. And I think we're probably in the neighborhood of 9 or 10 months right now. Maybe Nick can help me with that. But another thing the province has done under Bill 109, which we will have to manage, is refunding application fees when site plans and rezonings aren't approved within very short timelines. So that, of course, we're still going to do everything we can to make sure that we are balancing the public and the private interest, and balancing the benefits to the applicant, and also working in to ensure the protection to the neighbors. It's just a matter of balancing that. But I think we're in a position now where they could appeal to the board if they wanted to.
All right, so we're already in that situation. All right, I'll leave it up to council. The motion's on the floor with the mover and seconder, and debate on the deferral. Mr. Patterson first, and then Ms. Deneen, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to get a little bit more information on the parking, because we reduced the parking, and there was traffic. I recall there were quite a bit of discussion about traffic and noise. There's suggestions that landscape buffering would help. It won't, not in that close proximity. So anyway, could we have just a run through as to why we reduced the minimum parking, and some discussion on the traffic that would be caused here, especially if the limited parking or just car space other than the stall itself or the corral.
So, Councilor Patterson, if I must interrupt, we're talking about the deferral here right now, whether there's a question on the deferral. The parking question is actually part of the original motion. And so you can ask those questions, but we're not at that point. We're looking at a deferral motion. So do you have any items on the deferral? Usually we don't debate deferral. I'm being very generous.
Has he made a referral
Yes.
motion? Have you made a referral motion?
Yes, I made a motion to defer this to the August 22nd meeting in order, to defer to August 22nd in order that staff can get the Fergusons and the applicant back together, and maybe they can find some more middle ground before coming back to us. So that was my deferral.
So defer or referral?
Sorry?
Defer or referral?
Defer. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Sorry. My bad too. It is refer if you wish staff to review it. It is defer if you just want it to be held and brought to another meeting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to see some action taken between now and then. So I suppose I do mean refer. Yes.
That's the way I interpreted it, because you premised it by the fact that you're asking for staff to continue meetings with the proponent and the adjacent property owners.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So when it comes back on August the 22nd, if council should approve this, then it may not look exactly like what we're dealing with right now.
Correct.
There may be some adjustments. So so I suppose I mean refer back to staff. Yeah.
That was seconded by the deputy mayor, and back to Mr. Patterson. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I want to make sure we're discussing.
No, I'm okay with it. No debate on referral. I just didn't hear referral. I heard deferral.
I thought you did. Oh, for God's sakes, you guys. Actually, you seconded it. There you go.
Yeah, I seconded.
I mistakenly thought it was the deputy mayor.
That's why I asked if someone came up with a referral, because I seconded the deferral. And we were discussing about the need for the deferral in terms of information, and that's why I added my parking comments. If you're talking referral,
yeah. Sorry about that. Mr. Patterson, do you continue your seconding then?
If you're looking for a seconder to refer, then I will second that.
Council, we have Madam Clerk. Are you comfortable? Sorry.
Through your worship, would you like me to read a motion?
Sure, go ahead.
Council is aware that this item be referred back to staff to consult with the adjacent property owner and the applicant to address outstanding concerns and report back to the August 22nd council meeting.
Okay. Everybody comfortable? All right. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. And thanks for your patience through as we go through some of these meetings and issues. I am not going to support the referral.
Okay.
We have very competent staff who are making the recommendation that we support this motion. As Mr. Amy indicated, the new applicant and the existing landowner to the side have been in conference with each other. They've been negotiating a thing, and I sure as the heck don't want to put us in another appeal position, which they guarantee. I will bet money that if we refer this, we're going to have an appeal on our hands, and we're going to be in front of Alpad again, and we're going to spend thousands of dollars. I think, the staff have made the recommendations. We have competent staff. They're supporting the recommendation. NVCA doesn't seem to have an issue with what's going on. If we're going to have problems, I think it's the NVCA that would be creating a problem for us. They don't seem to be doing that. And the communication has already happened between the applicant and the landowner. And I'm sure there's going to be a few things, the site plan, there's going to be some adjustments. The building department's going to be involved to make sure everything's according to Hoyle. So I'm not going to support this referral. I think we need to make a decision and move forward. Thank you.
You've made your point. Appreciate that. Mr. Patterson.
It's a point of order.
Okay.
We're making speculative comments based on a referral motion, which shouldn't be debated.
I agree.
So that's unnecessarily, unduly misrepresenting the discussion.
I agree.
And I think it misunderstands our role here. There's no question our staff has done a good job. Our council, one councillor, is trying to represent the views that he feels are coming from the public. That's predominantly what we do here, not trying to speculate whether or not staff did a good job. So referral, some of the comments were made. I would ask the chair to call the motion.
Thank you. That's where I was getting to. Again, it's a delicate balance being the chair of the meeting when you guys are all very respectful and you ask good questions. So, I don't want to be the person who drops the hammer, but it's here in front of me if I need it. Thank you.
So I dropped the hammer.
Well, no, I appreciate your comment, but you asked for a point of order, and it is. It's a good point. But it happens to be the style that I have, and
I compliment you many times.
Council, on the motion for referral, we have a mover and seconder. I will now look to you for your vote. Those in favor? And opposed? It does fail. Moving on. We have a motion in front of us. On the original motion, anything further people would like to speak about on the motion? Ms. Deneen, thank you for being patient.
And it's going to echo what Councillor Patterson, sorry. The traffic studies, were they done with the reduced parking spaces and the county was on board with all of that? Or is that site plan approval? Now, after the traffic study, we've got Airport Road, Tim Hortons. I'm very familiar with the Shelburne corner, Tim Hortons, and First Street with the Starbucks. Were those traffic studies done with the reduction in parking spaces? And is the inclusion of takeout another thing on there, or was that always there? I understood it was just a drive-through originally.
All right, to Mr. Ainley, welcome back to the meeting there, Nick.
Thank you, Worship.
In regards to the traffic study work.
Yeah, so as a planning staff, I can speak to I can't speak to the engineering specifics of it. I'll leave that to our peer review engineering consultants to confirm. However, I can confirm that the applicants have submitted a traffic impact assessment as well as a parking justification letter to support the reduction in reduction in parking. Our peer review consultants have reviewed it and are generally satisfied that the requirements for the turning movements, number of site maneuvers, turning into the site, and traffic volumes are acceptable based on the required criteria. Again, I can't speak to the details of that, but that's my understanding from their review of the report. Again, to the site, the engineering component of it is reviewed through the site plan process, but they are requesting reduction in the number of parking, which is more akin to the plan justification, or sorry, the parking reduction letter, justification letter they had submitted. It's important to note that our requirement for reduction in, or sorry, parking requirements for a takeout and drive-through use is fairly high for good reason. Obviously, these type of uses generate a high traffic volume and a lot of patron use of the site. The applicants are proposing to have it primarily drive-through. There is a takeout component of it. However, I just note that there is no in-restaurant dining or seating areas proposed, with the idea being that a lot of the existing customers would be, also stopping there for gas or the convenience store use, and there'd be a synergy in terms of the sales and the parking requirements. So that was based on the report submitted by the applicants. So hopefully that provides a bit more direction in terms of your question.
All right, Councillor Deneen.
Yeah, I can just see it being a real, I can see it being a real problem there. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other members of council with, yes, Councillor Broderick, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make note of the snowmobile trail, which crosses the property immediately to the north. That is actually the OFSC B trail, which is the main east-west trail throughout the province. Just wanted to make sure that access and egress for snowmobiles is being considered for the property, and it's in the property owner's best interest that it would be, because there's a considerable amount of business derived from that. I have seen that myself.
Mr. Ainley, would that be information that would be found in the site plan agreement in regards to the snowmobile trail and access?
Yeah, so typically snowmobile, as I understand, is not typically a requirement of the zoning for parking requirements that we currently have. And similarly, it's not typically included in traffic impact justification reports as well. However, the comment has been made obviously through the public, and we are cognizant of the existing parking that and access that use goes on there. Through the site plan process, it's the intent of the applicant to try and help resolve these items. But that's basically the extent of it at this point in time.
Okay. Mr. Broderick, anything further?
No, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Back to you, Mr. Patterson.
Now, just as I was starting to say before.
I apologize. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. The parking, if we could just do a rundown in terms of the parking situation.
Yeah, so then,
Mr. Ainley, go ahead.
Yes, worship to Councillor Patterson. So parking justifications, the current requirement for the existing proposed use on the site requires 31 parking spaces. The applicants are requesting a reduction of 8 spaces down to a total of 23. In support of the reduction, they did submit a plain justification parking letter in support, which I indicated earlier. The findings of which did justify the reduction. It's always a challenge on these properties that are existing developments, more brownfield development that's being redeveloped, and there's existing uses on the property. But based on the material submitted to date, municipal staff are satisfied that a sufficient amount of parking has been provided for the proposed uses, and that movements on the site have been designed to be safe and efficient on the property.
Thank you.
For a drive-through, I always ask this question: Does the parking for the use of the drive-through restaurant include the cars in the waiting line? I think you got about 10 or 11 cars in
there. Through your worship, yes, they do not. The parking requirement does not. So those 12 stacking lanes are a separate requirement. So there's 23 proposed parking spaces with an additional additional 12 stacking spaces provided in the stacking lane.
All right. And the last question is
one more question.
And the last question is the buffering. The answer to the concerns from the 21st meeting, from the 2021 public meeting was that for noise and aesthetics, I guess, there's a substantial more landscape buffering would be provided. It seems like a tough, tight site already. What is that? What form does it take and how much noise reduction are you going to get from that?
Yeah, so typically through what's proposed at this point in time is that they are proposing a solid board fencing. So it's double boarded fence along the perimeter of the rear of the site that impacts adjacent properties that support residential use. In addition to that, they are proposing to enhance the existing landscaping by filling in those gaps in the existing cedar hedge, as well as providing some additional tree planting. So there'll be a mix of white cedars. I believe there are maple trees as well as honey locust on the site as well. So they are proposing some additional landscaping in those areas, but you are correct. It is a tight area to fit it all in. But the primary buffering would be the acoustical fencing or the solid board fencing that's to span the perimeter of the rear of the property around those sensitive land uses.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I believe you had your card up.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Nick, just to be clear, the consulting engineers that did the traffic study and the reduced parking study support the reduction of the parking spaces. Is that correct?
Correct, provided that there is no inside dining in the proposed use. They were generally supported by our peer review.
And there is no inside dining plan for the structure.
Just,
is that correct?
I take out kiosk inside.
Yeah, take out, but no inside dining. Right. Thank you.
All right. Members of council, anything further? Looking around the table, this has been a really good debate. I'd like to just point out or ask a question to Nick. Many of the concerns that have been brought up in regards to the setback earlier, even the question about the well, garbage, et cetera, these can all be addressed with the site plan agreement, which is something that'll yet come back to council, which is actually different than what Ms. Burton was saying, because that hasn't actually passed yet, that staff would have that ability. So can you just describe the process moving forward for us?
Yeah, so basically you're correct in that manner, is that this is the zoning bylaw amendment component of the development at this point in time. So typically if the site, if the design matched the site currently and no requirements for no variances are required to the township zoning bylaw, typically they proceed to the site plan approval process. So following that process, they do work with municipal staff to submit designs that are peer reviewed to our internal departments and external commenting agencies. So that engineering review goes back and forth. So we're comfortable that the proposed design does meet all our municipal requirements. That includes zoning. And then following that, we bring a recommendation report back to staff, which would also include a site plan agreement, which would specify all the different types of revisions they do need to meet as part. So they have to follow all the approved plans in terms of design, as well as the operational uses of the property. So it is a legal agreement. The applicants do submit securities as a part of that for the development of the site, and they are bound to it to operate the property in accordance with the approved plan and the provisions of that agreement moving forward.
Great. Thank you very much. Council, you've received that information as well. Council, good debate. I am looking at the motion, which was made by Lamers, seconded by Burton, Deputy Mayor Burton. That's why I thought the seconder was here. So appreciate that. Anything further? All right. Thank you, Nick. Members of council, you have a motion in front of you. I'm prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? Are there those opposed? Wow, that's a close one. That'll carry. Thank you, members. All right. I don't see them that close that often on these things, so thank you for that. Members of council, Parks, Culture, Recreation, RFP approval for Sustainable Strategic Tourism Plan Consultant. Recommendation be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive report PCR 012-2022 RFP approval for Sustainable Strategic Tourism Plan Consultant dated July 11, 2022. And item 2, award Sustainable Strategic Tourism Plan to consult firm BC Hughes in the amount of $55,000 plus HST. A mover and seconder on this motion. Mr. Walker, seconded by there we are, Councillor Leishman. Thank you. Is there anybody who is on board? Mr. Vachon is there. Oh, he is here. John, look at that. Mr. Vachon's with us. How are you, Terry?
Doing good, Your Worship.
I wasn't sure if
yes,
you were
Your
joining
Worship.
us. I hadn't been given the notice that you were with me, but nice to see you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I was on vacation last week, and Your Worship, I did hear your comments with respect to the porta potties.
Thank you.
I will look into that a little further, and also look into the washrooms at the tourism building. I wasn't aware that those were broken as well, so I'll look into that as soon as possible. And I have full confidence that our tourism team, they usually adjust pretty quickly to issues or concerns, so we should be able to deal with this for our next farmers market.
Well done, sir. Thank you. Do you have any comments about the report, Mr. Vachon?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Not much more to add than what's been presented. I'm here on behalf of Miss Murray this evening. She's away on vacation, so I'll answer the questions as best as I can. And if council has any concerns, we'll deal with those.
Okay, members of council, do you have any questions to Mr. Vachon? Oh, gee, Terry, you're getting away easy here. Members of council, thank you, Terry. Council, we've got a motion in front of us. I am prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Good luck with the program. I look forward to hearing some more about it, and we'll maybe even ask for an update at economic development after we get working on this. Thank you. Thank you, Terry. Welcome back. Council, further from Parks, Culture and Recreation, Youth Center report. Be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive report PCR 013 2022 Youth Center report for summer 2022 and dated July 11, 2022. Okay, a mover and seconder, Mr. Walker, seconded by Councillor Deneen. Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Burton, you're still on that committee, right? How's that?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I tried to second it. But
Oh, well, I was looking this direction. So Terry would like to speak because he's got a request to speak sign. There he is, by the way, a leader amongst our senior managers who has his yellow card handy. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to provide council a quick little preamble. I want to present Miss Shannon McCormick this evening. She was hired during the COVID close down. I don't know if all of council have met Shannon yet. Shannon took over from Miss Courtney Rogers, who is away on a maternity leave at the moment. And Shannon she started with us in September, and her and her team have done a phenomenal job at the youth center. Taking over from Courtney. I'm extremely proud of the youth center and the programming that they have done. They've really raised the bar with respect to programming of the youth center. The numbers have shown it. But again, I just wanted to present Miss McCormick to council. I think she's on now, and I'll let her highlight some of her. I'll let her present some of the highlights from her report, and we're both available for any questions if council may have.
Outstanding. Ms. McCormick.
All right. Thank you, Terry, and thank you, Your Worship, members of council, staff, and the public for your ongoing interest and support of the Clearview Youth Center. I'd like to take the time to touch on some youth volunteer opportunities that have been provided as they go a long way towards assisting youth with skills and character traits needed for future experiences. So the Clearview Youth Center is very fortunate to have great interdepartment relationships, having our youth consistently volunteer at events such as the Stainer Christmas tree lighting, the 3-on-3 youth hockey tournament, trail tunes, and music market and parket. Thank you to the community culture and tourism team who always invite our youth to help out at these events. We've also had the pleasure of teaming up with the Stainer branch of the Clearview Public Library to throw our second successful pancake breakfast of the year at the reopening party. Many of our youth have volunteered at these events, have noted a newfound interest in giving back to the community. Because of this, we had started a Clearview Youth Center community group. This is a group held at the Youth Center in which community initiatives are planned and then facilitated by youth with support from staff. Through this group and their amazing initiative, we will be incorporating intergenerational programming into our August calendar. Youth and staff will be visiting Stainer Care Home, and our youth community group will be facilitating games for these residents every Tuesday morning in August, which we are all very excited to facilitate and participate with as a team. As I mentioned, our volunteer opportunities work to provide youth with valuable skills. Another area that helps to build upon these skills for the future are our drop-in programs. And a program that exemplifies this is one that staff presented to youth called Shop and Cook. With this program, youth in groups had the chance to plan and budget what they wanted to make for dinner. And then they ventured off to Stainer Foodland with staff to purchase these items while trying to stay within their budget. After purchasing these items, youth then cooked these meals for all Youth Center members. And programs such as this and others offered at the Youth Center are not only educational, but incredibly fun and exciting to plan and participate in, with many youth requesting this certain program to be held again at the Youth Center in the fall. Providing a daily meal to youth is something that the Clearview Youth Center prides itself on, and providing food security to not only Clearview youth, but their families by parents and guardians having to purchase one less meal on their grocery bill is an initiative that not only can impact youth in the present, but the future as well. In the last 3 months, so between March 22nd and June 30th, we have provided approximately 590 individual meals to youth between the ages of 11 and 16. Whether it's dinner or lunch, staff have decided that this is one very important offering to the Youth Center and one that we can provide to youth and families of Clearview. Another important offering that the Clearview Youth Center provides to youth are staff that generally care about each and every youth member that walk through our doors. Courtney and Felicia, Clearview Youth Center coordinator and assistant, who are both currently on leave, have created a safe, accessible, inclusive space that youth feel comfortable to be themselves in. Current staff, Carson, Abby, who are both the current Youth Center assistants, have carried on this feeling of inclusivity throughout each day that they arrive to work. Carson has developed our Set in Stone Music Mondays, a program in which he teaches youth the ins and outs of the music world and instruments through a patient, positive, and kind attitude. Abby is our resident arts and crafts expert, but she takes it a step further each art drop-in program by providing art activities that have therapeutic meaning behind them. Having Carson and Abby as staff members with great attitudes and ideas has allowed for the Youth Center to both expand in programming opportunities and expand in Youth Center membership numbers. I will end off the report with some of these youth membership numbers. So the number of collective youth visits per month, so the group of youth who are attending the center each month. For January, that was 62, and this was with a 5-person capacity limit. For February, this jumped to 132 collective youth visiting the Youth Center that month. For March, this number rose to 200, April, 242, May, 269, and June, 250. The number of individual youth visits per month, so individual youth who enter the center. In January, again, with a 5-person capacity limit, we had 12 youth, February, 21, March, 49, April, 55, May, 65, and June, 62. And if we're looking at 3 years at a glance, one of the most important things Courtney mentioned to myself and my staff was the important part of our job for the past couple months was to be rebuilding from COVID-19, especially with the restrictions and procedures kind of limited or reduced. So from July 2019 to July 2022, with the beginning of COVID-19 restrictions and lockdowns, we had 1,073 collective visits of youth into the center within that year. From July 2020 to July 2021, this was with full-blown COVID-19 restrictions. The youth center shut down for most of the months. We had 265 collective visits. And from July 2021 to July 2022, with restrictions in place, some lockdowns, and then restrictions lifted and decreased, we've had 1,630 collective visits. So again, attaining these numbers greatly shows all the hard work and dedication put into the Clearview Youth Center for Clearview youth, starting from those who originally founded the Youth Center and every single person in between until today. In my personal opinion, this is a much needed facility for youth, as a lot of them have incredible ideas, and the Youth Center allows them to expand on these ideas with not only support from staff, but support from council members and other departments as well. Thank you.
Well done, Shannon. You know, I don't think we've had you at our council meeting before, but you've made good an impact here today. So thank you for joining us. And that's a very good report. Nice to see you and your team and all the youth doing a great job here at our youth center. Well done.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. The deputy mayor would like to have a comment in here. As I mentioned a minute ago, he's a member of the committee as well as Councillor Walker. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And you probably haven't seen me at a lot of the committee meetings. Unfortunately, I get tied up in other county and other things. But I'm thrilled, just thrilled. And you may not be aware, but it was Councillor Walker and myself that I'm going to say we had a tough fight on our hands to get this thing started. And I'm looking at the paint that I probably painted on that wall behind you. So there was a lot of personal labor that went into it between Robert and I and the council members. I'm just thrilled what you guys have accomplished. I have no problem stating the fact that we have the best youth center in the county, beyond a doubt. Thank you for your efforts. Appreciate it.
You're here. Any other members of council? I see the the deputy mayor is finished. Looking at Mr. McKechnie. Anybody else? And Mr. Walker. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Shannon, well done. That's a great report, and it's very positive and optimistic and such. I just have two questions for you. The meals that you're providing, I think that's great. What sort of meals are they? Are they healthy meals? Are they sandwiches? And the second question I have for you is I think you said that you were limited to 5 youth in the facility at any one time due to COVID. So I think you said that you were talking fairly quickly. Have you had occasion where you've had to turn youth away because you're at your limit in there? So those are the two questions, the meals and whether you've had to turn any youth away. Thank you.
Anna, go ahead.
Through your worship to Councillor McKechnie, for your first question there, the types of meals that we provide are nutritious. We've done things in the past, actually the past couple months, where we had this new program called Try Something New Night. And that was where the youth were trying a new meal from around the world. That's include West Africa, from Spain to Italy. And the point of this program was to provide youth with different spices, different textures that they may never have tried before. And then our regular day-to-day meals that we provide always have like a protein, a carb, and a fat in them, following Canada's Healthy Food Guide. And for your second question there, in regards to the 5 youth capacity limit, we had to turn some youth away who were coming, and there was 5 youth in the building. However, we did limit youth to certain times in order to get more youth in and out. So they're able to stay for an hour or two, and then they were able to leave the center, allow someone to come in, and then so on and so forth.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Well done. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Shannon and staff, and to Felicia and Courtney, it's been a real treat to see the youth center move forward in the direction it has moved. The other thing I would like to say is that the last board meeting we had, we talked about how can we promote the youth center? How can we get the word out there? And it was mentioned that by myself that maybe we should have a report by staff member to council so that it would be in the public interest. It's here, it's on camera, it's out there as public information. And to me, this is the best way to promote our youth center. It is top notch, and kudos to all the staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, any other? Oh, Councillor Leishman. Hello, Connie.
Hello. Thank you, Shannon. That was great. I would just like to remind council or tell council, I'm not promoting this, but I watched their little Instagram, and you can see the meals that they eat, and they're quite good. And I also watched what came up on Chopped. I don't think I'd eat some of that, but it was okay. You know, some people won. That was good. But yeah, it's a great site. It's a great way to promote it. And I'm glad you're there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything further from members of council? All right. Anything further from Shannon or Terry? Anything further? All right. Keep up the good work over there. By the way, Shannon, it was great to meet you at the the tree lighting, right? The Christmas tree event that we held. I think that's the first time I met you, and there was quite a keen group of kids there. So I tell you what, I hope to see you at this year's lighting. How's that?
Yes.
Mr. Walker. Mr. Walker, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. Just one other thing. If you haven't been in lately, please go and talk to Shannon and go for a little tour and have a good look at everything. You would be very impressed. Thank you.
Excellent. Great. Members of council, thank you very much, staff, and thank you for that very good report. Good discussion on a very important item. Members of council, there's a motion in front of you. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? Oh, and it's a request to speak. We're going to call that unanimous. Thank you. Good job on the card. Unanimous. Thank you. Well done. All right. Well done once again from Parks, Culture, and Recreation. All right, council, we're moving to page 5. Top of page 5 is the finance report. This is in regards to the penalty and interest relief on property taxes. Certainly something that has been bandied around since our last council meeting. I'll read the full recommendation as it is not a complete motion, meaning that there's an option available. At the time, I will read the entire motion, but I will not look for a mover and seconder. I'll look for a discussion on a mover and seconder for the option. All right. Members of council, recommendation be it resolved, council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive report FIN 010-2022 penalty and interest relief on property taxes, and option 1, authorize the tax collector to waive penalty and interest on an application basis for the 2022 tax levy, or option 2, authorize the tax collector to waive the penalty and interest for all 2022 tax levies beginning on April 1, 2022 and lasting until December 31, 2022, as long as the account is paid in full by December 31, 2022. And pass an amended bylaw 22-38 with the following added paragraph. Penalty and interest will be waived on the 2022 tax levy for the period from April 1 till 2022 to December 31, 2022, provided the tax account is paid in full by December 31, 2022. All right, so council, this is a report that was put together by our staff after I had a meeting with our CAO and had a discussion with him about this point that was brought up during a public participation period. As well as mentioned in ward reports, there were many discussions by members of the public with members of council about this. And so at this point, we have a report that's been generated by our staff, which hopes to alleviate and correct this difficulty that came about as a result of our council passing a resolution in January. So council, I'm looking for a mover and seconder on either option 1 or option 2. Mr. Patterson. You had your hand up. Go ahead. Yeah. Well, I will
move option 2.
Again, before we get into full debate, I wanted to be clear. I'd like to have a complete motion in front of us, which that'll be complete, and then I'll ask for a mover and seconder, and then we can have a debate. Does that make sense?
Yes. And maybe to help it along, I would support 1, obviously, but only if we had a direct letter to each person because of the problem we have, whether it's a fault or not, of communicating. So I favor 2. It's the easiest way to get it done.
All right, Councillor Patterson is recommending option number 2. Is there a seconder on option 2? Well, that's Ms. Deneen, you're looking for option 2. All right. I will ask also, is there anybody else with any other options? Options 1 is on the table. Is there a mover on option 1? There isn't. Mr. CAO, I see you want to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of concerns here with, I think where this all stemmed from is really about making sure the municipality has a cash flow. And that's why the tax bills are lined up to basically match our obligation to pay the county and the school board when they send us a request for payment. The important thing is that we don't go into our overdraft and incur interest when we don't need to. And that's really what we're trying to manage here. My concern about option 2 is that it may give people some comfort not to pay until the end of December. And that means it could affect cash flows. So if possible, I would recommend option 1, in that anybody impacted would be, approved by the clerk or by the treasurer's department to waive any interest as it relates to basically the bill requirement is 2 months earlier this year. So anybody that's caught this year, we would like to be able to waive the interest if they make that request to us, and we would waive the interest. The idea is to keep the cash flow coming into the municipality. That's the ultimate piece here that is maybe not understood by the public, and why the Department of Finance wanted to match those payment schedules. It means that we have to dip into our line of credit when we don't have the cash flow. So that's why it's lined up. And that's really what's trying to be protected.
Okay, so on the discussion to complete the motion, this is like having a little mini workshop to complete the motion and present it in front of council. We have a mover and a seconder. I asked if there's anybody on option 1. I didn't see any. So I'll ask one more time. Is there anybody? Yes, Mr. McKechnie.
Sure. After hearing the CAO's comments there, yes, I think option 1 would be the best.
Okay.
So I'll move option 1.
Are you a seconder then on the? Okay, so that's Mr. Broderick. So now we have the 2 on the floor. So what I'd like to do is I'll call the motion on, this is just to make it a complete motion on option 2, and asking if people are supportive of option number 2 being the option put forward to the main motion. This is a workshop ask. Council, any questions?
Are you asking for comments or vote?
Well, I mean, we're going to have a debate one way or another. So the question is whether we put option 2 on to complete the motion or option 1. So this is like a nomination process in a little mini election at the Lions Club, right, Councillor Walker? So we're looking to see which one wants to stand. Yes, you would like to speak?
So I just had a comment on it. So I appreciate what the CIO said about people waiting. Although I guess I'd have to see some option that people would a sizable number would go to the end of the year. I don't know if there's any evidence that would happen. People generally pay their taxes. There is a sizable amount of money that we bring in arrears interest, but it's nowhere near how much we collect. So is it a real concern, I guess, is what I'm asking. I'm not trying to do something reckless here. I kind of ruled it out, good faith taxpayers and that sort of thing. So that's why I still support option 2.
Okay. Yes, Phyllis.
Would it work better if we shortened the timeline then? The December 31st, shorten that timeline up.
You mean like back to November?
Pardon me?
Back to what it used to be in October.
April, because people have been caught up until now, not knowing, like.
Can I ask, I would rather not have any amendments until we actually get to an actual motion.
Fine.
Sorry, I consider this a discussion in a workshop where we're trying to complete a motion to be presented in front of council, because our duty is to prepare or receive these motions, and then council will move and second it, and then they become council's motion. So let's deal with that in a minute. Deputy Mayor, on option 2, we're discussing.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am going to support option 2 because I think everybody should be entitled to the same, even though people pay their taxes on time, or they're having to pay it earlier, then they should be entitled to that same discount of not having to pay taxes, not having to pay the interest because of the installments. So to me, option 2 is the only option. We got to make it fair and equal for everybody. And I think the majority of people are going to pay their taxes on time anyways, right? Most people do pay most of them are being paid through their mortgage companies. and stuff like that. And then I know there was a problem with some mortgage company paying tax payments weren't received on time and stuff. So I think you just got to offer it across the board. I support number 2.
All right, well, thank you. I see the clerk, or sorry, the clerk. This is the clerk. I see the treasurer has joined us on screen. Kelly, did you want to speak about option 2? That's what's on the discussion point at this time.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the rest of council. My only concern with option 2 is it amends the bylaw. Option 1 is the similar option that we used for the COVID relief when we were penalty and interest free. We went for an additional 3 months of relief for taxpayers that were still finding it difficult. I think that worked very well. And I think in this situation, it would work well as an option. It's much easier to manage, and it really does target people who are having budgeting issues because of the due date switch. Those would be my comments to council. We're trying to target people that are really feeling a pinch from the installment date, or are feeling a pinch because they didn't feel notified in time, rather than trying to alleviate penalty and interest on all taxes. And again, it's obviously a council decision, but my recommendation would be option 1.
Okay. All right, council, you've heard some good discussion on option 2. I'm prepared to call it unless there's anything further in regards to the ask. Seeing none, members of council, this is a workshop decision about option number 2 to complete the motion. We have a mover and seconder. Can I ask for those in favor to indicate their favor? Those in favor? Option 2. All right, and that would be 5. Very good. And I'm going to ask for any opposed. That would be 4. Fair enough. For the record, can we ask if option 1 can have a vote? Those in favor of option 1, please indicate. That would be clear. Those opposed to option 1.
Well, I don't think we've said, there was a comment I'd like.
No, there's no comment because we haven't got an actual motion. This is workshop.
Okay, just the way it stands then.
Okay, so there you go. So that's the decision that council will now present, a full, complete motion, which will be option number 2. We can look at it being amended in a moment as we move through this by, I'll read the motion again and I'll look for a mover and seconder. Hang in there, Kelly. FIN 010. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive report FIN 010-2022 penalty and interest relief on property taxes, and authorize the tax collector to waive the penalty and interest for all 2022 tax levies beginning on April 1st, 2022 and lasting until December 31st, 2022, as long as the account is paid in full by December 31st, 2022, and pass amended bylaw 22-38 with the following added paragraph: that penalty and interest be waived on the 2022 tax levy for the period from April 1, 2022 to December 31st, 2022, provided the tax account is paid in full by December 31, 2022. Sir, are you moving it?
Yes.
Mr. Patterson's moving it, seconded by the deputy mayor. Now, Kelly, our tax department lead as treasurer, can you give us some commentary in regards to how you and your staff would execute this motion now?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the rest of council. So what will happen is the amended bylaw will pass, which is on the agenda. The tax collector will cease penalty and interest charges on all accounts. As of December 31st, we'll have to go through the ledger, and any account that is not paid in full, we will have to then go back and reinstate penalty and interest on.
Okay. I got some questions. Tom, I saw first, then I'll go to Doug. Go ahead, Mr. Patterson.
So just occurred to me as you were speaking, when you went through that process, normally if someone's in tax arrears, when do you notify them that they're liable to incur charges?
Through your worship, to Councillor Patterson, Tax arrears notices go out on a regular basis. In this instance, there wouldn't necessarily be tax arrears notice when we're halting penalty and interest. But if council wishes, we can send those out more frequently.
I'm just suggesting that that you do the same process. You would say basically use the dates that we've agreed to here back in January. Simply say that your account is due, but based on this provision, there is no interest, but we would like that you keep your payments up. Something to that effect.
Through your worship to Councillor Patterson, we could absolutely include that. It would not reach taxpayers whose accounts aren't due yet. So it would go effective after the July installment.
And this would be an encouragement or an inducement to allay the fear that the CIO mentioned, that they thought maybe they'll wait till the end of December to pay. Those people that would wait that long maybe wouldn't have the wherewithal to do it then either. It doesn't sound like it would be extra work than what you're doing right now. It's just that you're not collecting the interest.
Through your worship to Councillor Patterson, the extra work is on December 31st, basically, to go back through and then individually pick accounts that need to have this reapplied to.
But you've kept a running count of who that is by doing this.
Through your worship to Councillor Patterson, yes. We'll obviously have a running count of who's in tax arrears, but then the workload issue comes on the back end of that, where you're now having to go back into each one of those individual accounts and set it to reapply penalty and interest. I'm hoping I'm explaining that correctly.
No, you are.
So while we'll have a running account of every taxpayer who at December 31st is still in arrears, we'll have to then go back into each individual roll back to the date council sets, whether it be April 1st or a different date, and we'll have to reactivate penalty and interest on that account and reapply it.
So no, I appreciate that you're making it very clear the impact that you would have. I'm trying to balance the extra staff load to trying to respond to some of the concerns that taxpayers will have with the change in the installment dates earlier, and which really benefits the township in meeting our September 30th remittance date, and also expressing a certain amount of a real trust, I hope, that people will continue paying their taxes as they usually do, except for the harder cases.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKechnie is next, and then Councillor Denis.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Kelly. So when I look at the last page of your report, so by going with option number 2, we could be looking giving up $380,000 in penalty and interest. You know, by going with option number 2, it's going to cost us $380,000. Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor McKechnie, yes, that is correct. That would be an average annual before the pandemic relief.
Right.
So approximately $31,600 per month.
Okay, thank you. And December 31st sounds like quite a workload there. Good thing that's not a special day or anything like that.
Nothing special,
not a
really.
holiday or anything. Yeah. Feel free to come in extra hours that day, Kelly.
Now, all kidding aside, I just took a moment and pulled up the calendar actually, and I referred to our standing policy of giving staff that week following Christmas as a closure for the administration center. That's usually a motion that we receive sometime in October, November. I don't think we've passed that into an act for this calendar year. But looking at our past practices, it would be expected that that is a common thing. So the last business day that the administration center would be open and active would be the 23rd, looking at the calendar. So let's just keep that in mind, everybody. All right, Ms. Deneen, you're up next.
I'm wondering about a friendly amendment to October 1st on this, the penalty and interest, the period from April 1st to October 1st, 2022. That gives people a couple of months to get their tax accounts in order, and that waives it waives the interest that they've incurred this year, and gives them a couple of months to set up things better with their tax accounts on their mortgages.
If I'm not mistaken, the last installment date currently is September 29. So October 1st is only a couple of days away. So you're suggesting if it's not paid by then so that's only a couple of days.
Okay, so then how long? Shorten the period, November 31st. If you can't pay, if you can't set things up, you should only need a couple of weeks. Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong. It's that much, it would be that much work. You would want November if you were going to have to reinstate penalties.
Through your worship to Councillor Janine, November would be preferable if we're
Okay.
going to have to go back through and reinstate. And it does coincide with the historical final due date for Clearview taxes.
Okay, then please, I'd like to make an amendment to November 1st. November the 1st.
Which is a Tuesday, November the 1st. If you don't pay your taxes by Halloween, the goblins will get you the next day. How's that?
It's pick a date.
I'm just saying it's a great date.
Pick a date.
I just don't think November 31st, we just have it open. November 31st.
Okay, all right.
I'll support
November 30.
for November.
Third, yeah.
30. There is no 31.
Not 31st. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we have a friendly finally resolved by Councillor Deneen for November 30th. So the amendment would be in play. The mover, Mr. Patterson, the seconder, Mr. Burton, as a friendly. You're comfortable?
No.
I'm talking about the original motion. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Ms. Deneen has offered a friendly. So if Madam Clerk, you could acknowledge that we're scratching December 31, making it November 30 on both items, both for the amended bylaw and the motion itself. Correct?
That would be correct, Your Worship. So once council adopts the bylaw as amended, we will make that change.
Okay. Council, anything further in regards to this now friendly amended motion? Members of council? Yes, go ahead. You had something else?
I just want to make sure, it sounds like you're getting ready to call the vote. So we are
I'm getting
voting,
close.
we are voting on the whole motion, not just the amendment.
We're at the whole motion right now.
Okay, thank you.
And since we now have a complete motion with an actual mover and seconder, it's in the hands of council.
Okay,
And we had a friendly amendment offered. And as the chair, I conducted it.
good. Yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure what I'm voting on.
Yeah, me too. That's why I always ask the clerk. Anything further from members? I'd like to go to the CAO. Mr. CAO, you may comment in regards to your concern for cash flow.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's hard to predict.
It is hard to predict.
It is hard to predict, and I'm not sure how many people will be impacted by the 2-month early deadline. And but whatever council decides, we'll do. And but be mindful of the extra workload it does place on our tax department. They are busy, constantly busy.
It's constantly these days. I know. All right, members of council, I think we've had a good discussion. Thank you for the CAO and thank you for Kelly for hanging in there for us. Council, you've got a motion in front of you as completed and now amended. I'm prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? And opposed? And that's duly noted. Thank you. That does carry. Very good. If I may, I'd like to just go back to Kelly on a quick question on this same topic. Kelly, could you join us again? Kelly McDonald. Kelly, can you just advise us, how is the ask and program going for people to set up the deferred payment plan for the 10-month program? Has there been a significant uptake in that program?
Thank you, Your Worship. We've actually had quite a great number of people over the last 2 years specifically sign up for our pre-approved program. The flyers went out with the final tax bills detailing exactly how they manage it. And basically what it is you pay your taxes over 10 months. You have no fear, penalty, or interest. Starting January 1st, we calculate it based on 50% of the previous year's taxes. And then starting June 1st, it's calculated on the total for the current year's taxes. So we've had a lot of uptake for it. A lot of people are signing up, and we hope that continues because it really is one of the easiest methods to even out your budget.
Mm-hmm. So effectively, the program would deliver 5 equal payments, and then the number may change and 5 more equal payments. Is that correct?
Correct, Your Worship.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good program. I'm glad that we're getting the word out on that and talking about that a little bit more. Yes, Tom, you want to say something?
Yeah, just a quick one now that we've had the vote. Do we feel that this has gotten wide enough notice by everyone that we don't have to do anything like a direct mail out? I've asked for it a couple of times, and I know there's some resistance. Mostly, I've heard it's cost $4,000 to do it. I find it never mind-boggling that we can talk about stuff at great length for many months, and there's a sizable number of people that just aren't aware. And there may be a lingering concern out there. Is it out of the question to put in a direct mailer? Everyone?
If I may, I've had this discussion with the CAO and just recently today with Kelly in regards to how we communicate some of the corporate tax information in, data. I regret I did not have an opportunity to speak with our communications lead, Drew, although she does write very good emails and press releases. So, Mr. CAO, what steps do you think we could do to help communicate this decision of council and help get that information out there?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's a great question because when you're communicating with the public, especially on a individual property owner basis, historically it's been mail and we put documents in the envelopes, and but to a certain extent, not everybody reads what's in the envelope. They get their bill and they read that part of it. The other aspect is that there's various avenues in which we communicate. This is one of them, but we could take an ad out in the paper to describe it. And I think it would cost more if we actually did mailouts because the number of potential residents that would have to go to it might be in the vicinity of about $8,000. So I'm thinking we could take some newspaper articles out, maybe buy a couple of 20-second bites on a radio program to try to explain it as quickly as possible over a period of time. And that's not that expensive. I mean, there's certainly a cost to it, but it wouldn't cost $8,000.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it in your hands. I don't think we need a direct motion, but I think you've heard the urgency that this council feels and the public feel in regards to good communications. So if council needs to follow up, they'll bring forward something for you. But in the meantime, we'll leave it in your hands as CAO and senior management and communications to solve it, correct?
Correct. And maybe we could do a flyer, not a mail insert. Sometimes a flyer, a certain size, is cheaper than doing a direct envelope.
Yeah.
Very small.
$5.
Yeah.
We don't want to spend taxpayers' money
Right.
more than we need to do this is really what our objective is.
And effectively, that's what we're trying to do here is to be, to be efficient and to try to get the message out and do it effectively. And it is truly problematic when you're dealing with the multiple layers of media and now the social media world and so on, and even coffee meetings. People want to complain about their taxes all the time, and I respect it because I complain too. So I hear you. So good luck. Please report back to us and let us know if there's anything that you've required council to do. But there is certainly authority within your departments to do a good communications on this.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you. Thank you, council, for the indulgence. All right, Madam Clerk, we're prepared to go to bylaws unless there's nothing further in our reports. I don't think there is. How about we go to bylaws? You good? Are you nodding your head? Well done, thank you. Welcome to Clearview, by the way. Council, bylaw bylaw 22-19 to the prescribed rate of speed, concession 6 North, Donawasaga. Be it resolved that bylaw 22-19 being a bylaw to prescribe a rate of speed for motor vehicles driven on certain public highways be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 11th day of July 2022. Can I have a mover? Mr. McKechnie, seconded by Councillor Leishman. And council, I'm prepared to call it. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The bylaw carries. Thank you very much. Zoning bylaw amendment for 794047 County Road 124 Clearview. Be it resolved that bylaw 22-55 being a bylaw to regulate the, I'm not sure if I can read this right now. Is that right? Yes, yeah, that's right. It did pass. I'm just trying to recall. 2255 being a bylaw to regulate the use of land and character, location, and use of buildings, structures on lands municipally known as 794047 County Road 124 Clearview, legally described as 794047 County Road 124, concession 12, part lot 17 and 18, Clearview. Be presented to read a first, second, third time, finally passed on the 11th day of July 2022. Looking for a mover and seconder on the bylaw. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Mr. Lamers. Council, we've had a good discussion on this. Prepare to call the bylaw. All those in favor? And are there any opposed? And the bylaw carries. Thank you. Okay, this is the now amended 2256. So I'll read it, and through the clerk's office, we'll show it as amended. 2256, amendment to tax rates and levy taxes, bylaw 22-38. Be it resolved that bylaw 2256 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2238, being a bylaw to set the tax rates and tax levies for the year 2022, be presented and read a first, second, third time, finally passed as amended on the 11th day of July 2022. Can I have a mover and seconder on this tax bylaw? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Deneen. Clear on the amendment, Madam Clerk? Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Just checking. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Thank you. That bylaw also carries. Item 13 is our bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting. Okay, recommendation be it resolved bylaw 2257, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the July 11, 2022 council meeting be presented to read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 11th day of July 2022. Can I have the bylaw moved by Councillor Lamers and seconded by Councillor Walker? Thank you. Bylaw to confirm. All those in favor? And that carries. It's a confirmation. Is there anything further? No. We'll go to the motion to adjourn. Let's see, recommendation, be it resolved. And the time is 8:57. We're gonna go 8:57. Be it resolved, council meeting be adjourned at 8:57 p.m. Moved by Mr. McKechnie, seconded by Councillor Deneen. I thank you. Those in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for members of staff that have joined us, members of the public that joined us, and have a good evening.